My name is Joe McGivern, Chair of the Finance Committee, Holyoke City Council. Members of the committee who are present are Councilor Leahy, Councilor Bartley, Councilor Sullivan, and Councilor Tallman. We are joined by other city councilors, including Councilor Murphy, Councilor Graney, and Councilor Bacon are both by phone only. And I believe that's it at the moment. There's a couple other councilors that will be joining us. We have a not too bad of an agenda this evening, but a concentration on one or two items that are kind of a grouped theme. So if I could just set the tables for a little bit. The first item on the agenda is from our bond council, which is not for discussion this evening, but for information purposes, which I will gladly explain. But we have items 2 through 7 through 8, which are all requests for replacement of vehicles, mostly in the DPW and one in the fire department.
Make a motion, take those off the table.
Motion made second to take those off the table as a package, which I think is a good idea for discussion purposes. We have with us several special guests to address this. I'll remind everyone at the last Finance Committee meeting, we had our superintendent of the DPW in, who in great detail and depth talked about the aging fleet that the DPW has. We've heard from our fire chief going back to the budget hearings themselves about the need for a bucket truck for the alarm division within the fire department. But just because we've had these discussions, I think it's important that we start this evening with discussions about what the needs are for both of these departments, because they are similar needs, being that they are apparatus capital outlay expenditures. I've reserved the second part of the meeting discussion to focus on where the money could come from. Now, if you remember, the last time we had Mike in, we talked about lease to own, similar to what the police department does. We talked about bonding. We did not talk about stabilization, but the mayor has proposed using some stabilization. And there's a new source of revenue, or I shouldn't say new, but an unusual source of revenue before us this evening, which comes out of real estate transactions, which we're going to learn a little bit more about, because it's not something that we've done in the recent past. But it's there is more money in that account than usual because of some big sales of property that the city has been able to negotiate. So with that in mind, I would ask everyone to let's get through where the money is needed first, and then we can have a very good discussion about the options. There's not one option, there are multiple options. We may like one over the other, and that's what the purpose of this evening will be, is to see if we can come to a consensus on where the money should come from and how it should be, obviously how it should be spent.
Okay, Joe, Councilor McGivern, on a question on that, can we at the end of the night determine which pot of money it comes from?
We cannot change anything ourselves, Councilor Leahy, because we cannot amend anything that comes to us in the form of an appropriation. If we come to a consensus, as we have done in the past, we can send a message to one of our department heads this evening, and possibly a request to the mayor, who, if the mayor agrees, he can put something in a different format before us at our next meeting. That's thank you. Traditionally the way we've done it. We can't amend anything on the floor, but we can certainly send a message if we have a clear consensus. But I think before we get to where the money's coming from, where the revenue is coming from, I think we need to outline and understand exactly where it's going to. So if I could,
can I ask one question to the chair before we start?
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, similar to what Councilor Leahy was asking. So you said before our next meeting, is that a meeting of the Finance Committee or a meeting of the full City Council?
Hey, options are endless, Councilor Sullivan. It's a fair question. We could do it at our next City Council meeting. Some of this is urgent. If we don't get to a consensus, or if we decide to have another Finance Committee meeting, we can do it at our next Finance Committee meeting and continue our discussions. What I like to think is there's some legitimate problems here. We we're all part of the problem, you know, in a certain sense, where capital outlay dollars have not been spent over the years in the way that they should be. Our budget has a lot of constraints in terms of revenue and the way money is expended. But I was kind of hoping after tonight, we're all part of the solution, or at least going in the right direction for a solution, because these are legitimate problems to some very important services that the city provides for our residents. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just real quick, just housekeeping. I suggest on item number 1, we leave it on the table. This is from our bond counsel. It is an email that was received. I thought there was more in the email about bonding. It's more about bonding capacity and stuff like that. It's actually much more detailed about the middle school projects. So it will be something, you know, to keep in the back of our mind, that without a debt exclusion override option, which I don't think is there, if we go forward with middle school projects, it's going to require bonding to be paid directly out of the city budget itself. So that's the reason it's there. Councilor Murphy?
Councilor Bartley had his hands up first.
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, I just appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to take issue with everything, but I just want to point out, I don't think all of us are part of the problem. And I know you didn't imply anybody particular, but I'm going to go one step further. I do not feel city council is part of the problem. If somebody wants to disagree with me, they can disagree with me. But if we're going to explain things to the public, I think we can't be quite as diplomatic when we're at this situation as maybe we would want to be. We all know where appropriations are made. Everybody in the Zoom hearing, everybody, I'm not going to say a name, but everybody on the Zoom screen, we know where they're made. They're made solely by room 1. We also know where all the budgets are made, Mr. Chairman, solely by room 1. I don't want us to start on a dialogue that castigates city council for this mess. I agree with the second half of the chairman's statement, which is, you know, that's just, I think it was just well said, that we all need to be part of the solution. I, for one, want to be part of the solution. So if anybody who cares to watch us on TV or on the Zoom, I do want to be part of the solution. But to say, even in a diplomatic way, the city council in any way got us into this mess, whether it's the negative free cash 2 years in a row from millions of dollars now to negative free cash, I don't think that's given the public a fair picture. I think we've got to keep in mind it's room 1, but I appreciate the chair's patience. Thank you.
No problem, Councilor Bartley, and I like the way you categorize my diplomacy. So that's exactly what I was trying to do, and I think you know it as well as most people that know me and are listening to me. But I agree with you. Let's all be part of the solution, and we could have a very productive meeting this evening. So with that in mind, if we could just keep item number 1 on the table.
Motion to leave item 1 on the table.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so you know, I mean, I've been involved with some discussions on some Thursday mornings via Zoom with the schools, and one of the issues, and one of the reasons this is coming is, as I understand it, and I'm pretty much a listener when I'm there, one of the goals of MSBA is to get a realistic understanding of where the city council might be in terms of financing a school project. So tabling it, I certainly have, it's your committee, and I would certainly go along with that since we don't have her here, but I think we need to try to put this on the agenda. I think they were looking at somewhere in mid-March where they're discussing this again, and it's my understanding based on those meetings that they're hoping to get kind of a gauge on what the city council is feeling and what we might be willing to do. So I just want to put that out there. And I haven't spoken with the
point of information, Councilor McGivern, can we debate tabling this?
There's no motion on the floor, Councilor Leahy. It's open for discussion.
make a motion. No, there was a motion to table it.
I suggested we lay it on the table, but
Lay it
no
on
one
the
made a
table.
motion. I recognize.
Well, there was
Councilor
a
Murphy.
motion and there was a second.
Who made the second? Who made the first?
I made the first to lay it on the table.
Okay.
Speak up, who did it?
I did. I made a motion to lay it on the table.
There
Okay.
you go.
Somebody made a second, I think.
I second.
Okay.
Can Councilor Murphy finish his thoughts and we can go on?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I'm just want to make sure that I emphasize to the committee that, you know, that the MSBA is looking for guidance from the Holyoke City Council. That's all. I've been told that several times as I've been to 3 meetings, and that has come up every time. So I just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Councilor Murphy, I appreciate that. We got requests to get, you know, the discussion going on middle schools. That's the first I'm hearing from anybody that the MSBA is looking for something from us. So shame on them if they don't want to contact the people that, you know, are supposed to put
I'm with you. I just wanted to let you know that. That's all. Thank you.
I mean, that's the way the state works, though, and we all know it. But for tonight's purposes is what I'm trying to say. And Councilor Leahy, Councilor Peter, I recognize the motion. There's no need to take this off the discussion because we need a good discussion on where we are with the fleets for both 2 very important departments. So you do not discuss the motion to the table. Councilor Leahy is right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Councilor Murphy, your order is number 2, which leads into the package that we're about to discuss. I'm just going to read them and then read the other ones very quickly. Item 2, which is to take off the table as a package for discussion with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Item 2 is introduced by Councilor Murphy that the superintendent of DPW appear before the DG&R committee, however it was sent to finance, to develop a better communication system notifying residents that their trash recycling won't be picked up because of a snowstorm. In addition, the discussion should include trying to find a way to get back to the pickup for those residents within a shorter time period. When considering recycling pickup, a cancellation rather than the postponement means they have almost 1 month's of material to store. Would this be an area where working with ROCA might help to more quickly recover these services after the storm? Well, we're going to find out tonight, and I think we know that it's not just the storm. It's the condition of the fleet, as we heard from the superintendent. It's a manpower issue, which is part of the discussion tonight. But tonight is part of the real discussion is on the fleet and where we stand with the fleet. So Councilor Murphy's order does work right into the discussion. I suggest we hear from the DPW superintendent with an update, a prioritized update of the fleet, manpower, and what's going on with trash and recycling pickups, and then we can start talking about the proposals to purchase and to replace some aging fleet vehicles that we know about. So I've obviously done too much talking. I'm trying to keep us going forward. If there's no objection, Mike, could you start that discussion for us?
Sure. So we have been trying to do a better job lately about communicating where we are with trash and recycling on our schedule. We've been updating DPW's page on the City of Holyoke's website regularly. You know, at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, letting people who go to that website know where we are with both trash and recycling. DPW has a Facebook page that refers to our City of Holyoke page, but knowing that not everybody has Facebook, we've been trying to keep all of our information on DPW's main page. And then this afternoon, we used the Everbridge system for the first time to do a call out to people who have signed up for that system, just to let them know where we are. It took a little while to get set up because, you know, DPW historically we haven't been the ones making those calls, so there was a little bit of a learning curve. But now we have that. That's another tool that we can use to get information out.
Mike, could you explain what that system is and how you sign up? Because for myself, but for anyone else that's listening that doesn't know.
So it's the robocall system. that the city has. It's what the mayor uses for parking bans. I know Waterworks uses it when they do flushing. I'm even thinking that DPW can use it when we get into street sweeping very soon. I'm not sure how you sign up for it. I think my wife signed up for it a long time ago, and I left it at that. It's run through the fire department, so maybe the chief can speak to that.
Chief, can you answer the question of how we signed up for Everbridge, the robocalls?
Sure. As far as I know, you can go onto holyoke.org, and there's a link within the website to sign up for Everbridge. Everbridge was historically purchased by the city through emergency management years ago to notify citizens of emergencies within the city. It is a good tool to use in Mike's regard to disruptions in trash. The Waterworks use it for hydrant flushing now to notify citizenry of hydrant flushing. So it's a good tool for that. And obviously the tool will get better as more people sign up. It's not 100% participation right now, but as we get going, maybe even a publicity ad to get people to sign up, maybe on the channel 15 or something like that, could enhance the usage of the tool.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Graney?
Yeah, just quickly, as one who is technologically challenged, I got the robocall today. It was very effective. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Mike, is that your not explanation? Is that it for the item number 2?
And we do have vehicle issues. We have a couple vehicles that are out of service, and we do have the manpower issue with people mostly out on comp now. But
how many people do you have out
on comp?
Yes.
It's either 7 or 8.
Any long term?
2 of them have, yeah. There's been a couple who've been long term. And what happens then is we have to pull personnel from other divisions because trash is the primary goal. So, and also when we have recyclers, there's a job classification for a recycler. When a recycler is out on workers' comp because they're a different pay grade than our regular drivers, we need to use 2 drivers to fill that 1 slot.
And Mike, without getting into personnel issues, no specifics, are any of these workman's comp challengeable, or are they for the most part legit?
We're doing our best to weed out whether or not they're challengeable or legitimate.
And who works with you on those issues?
Hector Russell Dupree, the city's outside legal consultant, and Metatrol, who's our workers' comp agent.
Okay. I think that's the same the police and fire use?
Correct.
Okay. All right, Councilor Murphy, on your order, do you have any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, yes, I do. So first of all, I appreciate you taking this up because I think this is an issue. And we may not come to a solution, immediate solution, but I will say a couple of things. Number one, the communication has gotten better. And I think that's crucial, but it still needs to get better. I also got the robocall, but it left doubt as to exactly when they're behind, and the indication, if I'm recall, was that the trash is a couple of days behind and recycling might be a day or 2 behind that. So when do those people put their trash out? I mean, those kind of things need to be explained in greater detail. The other aspect to that would be in terms of when there's going to be a delay, trying to figure out a way to get so that delay is somewhat covered up in the next day or 2. And the other aspect of this, obviously, I understand the equipment issue. And I agree with Councilor Bartley. This is something that should have been resolved and put before us a long time ago. And in terms of manpower, I mean, if that is the case, then we got to figure out a way to at least temporarily get people that can staff and maintain. You know, I filed this. I've also had people contact, and I know all of you have had people contacting me. We need to be in a position so that we are not holding somebody, and I know I've had at least a half a dozen people told me that they had so much recycling after not having recycling picked up for basically a month, that they ended up just putting it in the trash because they had no place to store it. So obviously there's a problem, an environmental problem, there's probably a cost problem there as well. My goal here is to have as much as possible. If we need to, and I suggested ROCA because I know ROCA does some work with the DPW in terms of other factors. And I don't know, you know, what that contract says and what they're allowed to do, but if that or some temporary hires that we don't fall behind, and then we have trash floating around the city and where we have recycling getting thrown away. I mean, my goal is I'm not saying it's a simple thing, but we have got to come to a solution that is regular so that we don't have to make too many announcements. When we know there's a snow delay, we would know that we're going to make every attempt to pick up that day's trash and recycling within the next 24 hours or minimum 48 hours so that people know to leave it out. I don't know how many people asked me, so should I leave my trash out or do I take my trash in? And I did try to find out the answer. And in some cases I found out, in some cases I didn't. So people are, you know, bringing it back out, taking it back in. We need to get this resolved. And I appreciate the equipment, but again, are there ways, if we need to have another vehicle, are there ways that we could either lease a vehicle and or work with other communities to see if maybe they have some vehicles that we could use in the interim? I mean, we can't just say we can't do it because we don't have this vehicles and we don't have staffing. We need to figure out how to have the vehicles and how to have the staffing. And I appreciate the challenge, but we got to do a better job. And again, the communication today I was very pleased with that, Mike. Again, I would just emphasize, you know, if we can say if you're ordinarily getting picked up on Thursday, don't expect it till Monday. So don't put your trash out on Thursday. Then people would be more aware of what's going on. And obviously we need to do a better job in terms of getting publicity to be able to get that word out. But again, I know there's so many frustrated citizens wanting to know how we resolve it. And this is a start, and I hope we will get to the point by next fall that we've got this pretty much resolved, that we have a system. If we have a snow day, we know we're getting picked up within 24 hours or 36 hours, so we know we can leave things out. And again, I know it's challenging, but I'm a challenge, Mr. McManus. Whatever you need to do, I know we'll try to work with you to help you get what you need, because obviously we got to get this job done better. Thank you.
So on the manpower issue, that's something that DPW has been working on for the last 2 years, because we realized that the workers' comp, guys out on comp on the refuse and recycling division really affects the rest of DPW's workload. It took some time to get through union negotiations, and that passed, and it's taken some time to get a contract with the temporary agency signed and in place, and that's happened. So imminently, we are going to have temporary workers supplementing our workforce on trash and recycling.
So that'll be happening pretty soon, Mike?
Yes, yeah, and that'll. I think once that happens, we'll be able to quickly catch up. And you know, I hesitate to give people a date because I've given lots of dates in the past, and it sucks when you miss that date.
Could I just ask one more question? And I know, and I'm pretty certain I'm right here, but if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I think the regular contract, if the trash gets picked up whenever they're done, if it's at 2 o'clock, that's it. Am I correct in that? And they don't have to work the 8 hours if they can get it done in 6 or 7.
Correct.
So if we get behind, do they then get assigned to go and do another part of the city for that next hour, or no? Or is that not allowed?
No, well, because they didn't finish today's route. Today's route is Wednesday's route. They're working on Mondays, and they worked a full day on Mondays. So if they finished, let's say hypothetically, and this did happen, where they finished on recycling, they finished Fridays around noon today. So recycling went into Monday's recycling. They didn't go home. So when we're behind, they stay for the full day. Sometimes they put in overtime.
So just so people right now that have Thursday trash and recycling should really not expect, and certainly not expect their recycling to be picked up tomorrow. Am I correct?
Right.
But they will get it picked up within a couple of days. More than,
well, we got Friday and then the weekend comes. So I would say by Monday we'll be on Thursdays.
okay. So I think those are the kind of communications that I don't think people are so, if it's a day or two delay and they know it versus a day or two delay and then something happens and they don't know it and then it doesn't ever get picked up, and that's where we end up with more problems. So I mean, again, communication, and you notice that's the very first thing I talked about in my order. We got to communicate better, just what we're going to do. So I mean, if you have a good concept of what they're doing and how far is it going, I would just really emphasize that and put it and send that to the city emergency line and the DPW website and the city's website, whatever else we can do, because the more people know and know that they're not wasting their time putting stuff out and know it's going to get picked up, I think the contentedness of the citizenry will be much greater. And I know it's a challenge, but I'm willing to challenge you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
1 second, Councilor Graney. Councilor Barley's got his hand up, and you'll be next. Councilor Barley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I ask, I have a couple of quick questions, but to Mike McManus, will you explain that to me, please? Because that's the first time I'm here. That when we're on schedule with collections, if the sanitation workers complete their route, what happens?
So if everything's on schedule and the sanitation workers finish that work for the day, then they go home. It's a standard industry practice. It's been DPW's practice for as long as DPW's been collecting trash.
Okay, I just never, I was unfamiliar with the standard industry practice. That's the first time in my career here, which is, it's only 9+ years that I've heard that practice is actually the practice, but that doesn't mean anything. Is it contractual?
It is.
That was about 3 mayors, maybe 4 mayors ago, David.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, I'm not gonna that's the first time I'm hearing it. I don't have another comment beyond that relative to that. On the temporary workers, so that's something I believe you came to Finance Committee, Mike, at some point last fall, and we approved it. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. So that's oh, I think I'm about to get some good news about a sale of a property that's Councilor Sullivan's gonna. We'll talk about that offline, Mike. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's Holyoke related. Okay, so that's something where the City Council and the Finance Committee was part of the solution. I mean, quite often we have amnesia, and I don't want us to get amnesia, especially when the City Council came through on approval of something like that. And I'm not saying we have to be bathed in glory, but it would be nice once in a while to be thanked for that. relative to the Everbridge, I didn't know that was an easy sign up either. And so I just looked it up, Mr. Chairman. Not only did I see it with a very fast Google search, I also saw you can sign up online, but I also saw for persons with disabilities or other issues, they can call, and I'm not going to give the number out now because it's not appropriate, but because to get bogged down, but they can call, there's a phone number that they can call and a person attached to the phone number at HFD that they can call. When I do my newsletter before next Tuesday's meeting, I will put that in my newsletter. So these people that read my newsletter will be aware of that, and that they can call for the communication. So I'm glad that the Ward 2 counselor pointed out that it was you know, 1 or 2 day delay. You know, people are patient, but I'll tell you, people aren't patient anymore. People are very frustrated, and it's coming to me through phone calls and texts and emails, and it's online stuff, and a lot of us are getting hammered, and it's not fair. I'll take it, but so a 1 or 2 day delay, yeah, okay, this is days and weeks and all that in the communications, but and I hear you with manpower and long-term stuff, but boy, I don't know. Have you been regularly talking to the mayor about the workers' comp stuff, Mike? And what's the mayor's position? Are we going to hire more people? Is he going to change the budget? I mean, the mayor's in office every day, right? He shows up every day at City Hall. So what's his take on this?
We do talk about the trash and recycling delays and our manpower issue, and he's fully supporting these temporary workers.
Oh no, that's great. We know, yeah, we know that. But how about looking forward? Are we going to expand the DPW's budget? What are we going to do about workers' comp guys? How quickly are we going to get them back? That sort of thing. You know, I'm sure he's supportive of temporary workers. We know that. But just looking forward, what can we expect for FY22, for example?
So I'm just getting into the budget prep, but we always do try to add more positions. I mean, we are short-staffed, and I try to account for that in the budget.
All right. One thing specifically, you didn't just on the last part, would this be an area where working with ROCA might be?
Yeah.
Can you address that in more detail?
Well, we had conversations with ROCA 2+ years ago about this, and it wasn't something that they were comfortable with, working with our guys on our equipment, just with the youth and the people that they had.
Okay, is there an alternative that you can think of that would be pinch hitters other than temporary workers, or is that I mean, what are your thoughts, Mike?
I don't understand the question.
The question is, so the suggestion was ROCA, right?
Right.
So you dismissed that because of conversations you had 2 years ago.
With ROCA.
So you're suggesting to us last fall was temporary workers, and now here we are X months later, and we're now we don't have temporary workers, but we're getting there. And so, but beyond that, is there anything else that you're going to that you're thinking about when you're talking to your colleagues and fellow DPW superintendents about best practices? What if anything are they saying, or what other ideas has the mayor come up with to stabilize this?
I mean, we do have the temporary workers. We have a proposal. We have purchase orders been completed. Contracts been signed. So that's a pretty much done deal. With our union contract, we can bring in up to 4 temporary workers a day to replace people who are on workers' comp, or what DPW has, the income replacement benefit. I think it's for people who are injured outside of work.
Okay, I've taken enough time. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just a follow-up, Mike, on the temporary temporary workers. We approved that in the contract, as Councilor Bartley so well pointed out. And at one time we did not pass a transfer. Is that there a line item now part of your budget that would pay for temporary workers?
No, there's not a specific line item for temporary workers. We're using the budget within the refuse and recycling. There's an other services line item.
Is it safe to say that with the people on workman's comp, is their pay coming out of the same line item or another line item for workman's comp?
So workers' comp comes out of personnel's line item.
Okay.
So with this contract, there may be a need to transfer money from DPW's personnel line item for those people who are on comp into this other expense line item to cover the contract.
What I'm getting at it, I'm in favor. I think it's a good way to solve some of these manpower problems, but we need a handle on the budget for the rest of the fiscal year, that there's enough money to cover what your needs are going to be. Because if you're using one line item to pay for temporary that you need to pay for workman's comp or permanent workers, you know, you got to project out and, you know, through June 31st that you have enough money to pay for the rest of the year.
Right.
Councilor Murphy?
You just want.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that was next to the.
Councilor Murphy, I apologize, Councilor Graney.
You got Councilor Graney first.
I apologize to you, Councilor Graney.
Yeah, I just quickly, a question to Mike. How many recycling trucks do you have, and is there a problem with the hydraulic lifts on any of them, that you can't lift up those heavy buckets?
So we have 3 trucks. 1 truck is out of service right now. So there's 2 recycling trucks that are operational. I do not believe there's any problem with the hydraulics on the side lift.
Well, there may be a problem. Then anyways, I'll discuss it with you later. Thank you.
What's that, Councilor Graney?
There could be a problem because with the big buckets being loaded into the recycling trucks, you know.
Gotcha. Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, just kind of following up on that same thing. And how many trash trucks do we have, Mike?
We have 5 operating trash trucks.
And how many not operating?
2.
So we have a crew of, we have 7 trash crews or 5 trash crews? How many trash crews do we have?
So there's a total of 12 guys in refuse and recycling.
Okay.
9 are what we call drivers. 3 are recyclers. One of those recyclers is classified as a spare recycler. So he's supposed to fill in when one of the other 2 are out sick or on vacation.
Okay.
So there's a total of 12. Okay. If everybody's in and working, we would have 2 recyclers, and then we would have 4 trash trucks out with 8 guys on those trash trucks. So we would need 10 people to fully staff.
Okay, so two recycling trucks every day and 4 trash trucks every day.
That would be ideal.
Okay. And so right now, with the exception of the 1 recycling truck out of service, we do have enough trucks for, it's just more manpower than trucks.
We do, but those trucks are,
I know they're not in great shape.
Yeah.
But they're functional.
So we had one of our recycling trucks today went to Springfield, and as they were coming back from Springfield, there was a problem with the computer system, where when they would take their foot off the gas, the truck would start downshifting on them. So it's a gremlin in the system. It's not like brake pads that need to be replaced or an oil change. And it was solved by turning the truck off long enough for the computer to reset.
Okay, and my last question related to those, and my last question for the night, I promise. What's that?
For the night?
Well, for the night on this issue, on this particular order.
Yes, yeah.
Give me a break.
His order.
So if, or have we ever, you know, I know the fire department gets mutual service, and, you know, I've always have talked about trying to figure out better ways to do regional things. So is there any possibility that Chicopee might have when we have problems with a vehicle and we're short, that they might have it, that we might be able to, and we may have to pay a fee for it, but then be back in a situation where we have a full fleet of vehicles for what you need to do that day, or Chicopee or Westfield or West Springfield or any of the other ones. I mean, have we ever looked at that?
You know, not for that specifically. DPW has gotten mutual aid in the past from other communities. A couple years ago, there was a large snowstorm the week before Parade Day. And there were, I think West Springfield sent a crew over to help clear the route.
Okay.
They brought their equipment and it was their guys. I've never heard of a municipality leasing or loaning out their equipment to another municipality. I think there'd be concerns about wear and tear and damage. That is something that we did not explore. I didn't call up Chicopee and say, do you have any spare trash trucks or recycling trucks that we could borrow for a period of time?
I wouldn't mind if you just asked. I would love to hear the response, because again, I think, you know, we can do a lot of things regionally that support each other that might end up making all of the region look a lot better. But I appreciate your efforts and I appreciate the time, and I'm glad we're going to get temps in here, and let's try to get as close to caught up totally as we can. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for coming on tonight. I said a couple of quick questions. You answered a lot of my questions on your that video you posted, the campaign video on Facebook the other day. However, I just wanted to go one step further and just it asked, you know, we need a truck for the fire department, or not the fire department, the alarm truck. And we're getting phone calls from the commissioners. We're getting phone calls from the chief. We're getting phone calls from the firemen. How come you're not singing at the top of your lungs and for more manpower or a new truck? I mean, the DPW, as I've said time in and time and again, is the backbone of our community. This is something that I'm so extremely proud of. And in fact, you brought up the parade. St. Patrick's Parade Committee gave the Department of Public Works the Citizenship Award back in 2008 or 2009. This is something that we all take great pride in. Go ahead.
Was there I hear your challenge, and I will certainly start raising my voice about manpower and equipment to everybody.
If you could, I mean, as a department head, you know, I've stopped, you know, I've emailed you several times, and I've CC'd the mayor. I've yet heard a response from the mayor on any of those emails. I'm getting calls, getting emails, just as other counselors have said. This is you know, in the summertime, this is a quality of issue now. But can you imagine in the heat of the August summer, where the trash, the recycles haven't been picked up? It's almost a game of roulette now. Should I put them out? Should I not put them out? You know, are my trash cans get blown out? And I understand that we have manpower issues. However, my feeling is we hire more people. We don't go and privatize. You know, how did the union go about allowing you guys to privatize?
What did we privatize?
I thought you said earlier that you're bringing people in from a private company.
The temporary workers. Temporary workers.
Private.
Well, we're not replacing our employees with those temporary workers.
But you're not adding more employees.
We're not adding more employees. We're supplementing our existing staff who are out injured with the temporary employees.
So I guess
if we didn't have anybody out, then really there wouldn't be any need for these temporary workers, theoretically.
Okay, theoretically. All right, so, you know, I just encourage you, and I've said this many times before to you, you know this, that I think you guys are the backbone of our community. You know, start raising holy hell with us. If you guys need stuff, you know, tonight we're talking about $150,000 for a very well-needed truck for the alarm division. You know, I'm here to support you guys. I mean, quality of issues, quality of life is what I run on time and time again, and I want to help you guys. But we need to hear from you. We need to hear from the mayor. We need to hear from your commissioners. Thank you.
Councilor Tomlin?
Thank you. I'll be brief through the chair to Mike. Mike, I know it's difficult, and I take on a message of my colleagues, especially Councilor Murphy, that we just have to do a little bit better job of publicizing what we're doing. I also got the robocall today, and I think many more people could sign up for that to get that done. When I'm out there driving, I sometimes talk to the workers, and I talked to somebody picking up trash today. There were 2 days on a Monday schedule. They're on Monday trash today, and I understand that. So, you know, tomorrow will probably be Tuesday's trash and so forth. But he had told me they had like 10 people out. I mean, 10 people out, I mean, in a workforce of say 40 people, that's a good portion of your workforce. So I'm looking forward to you speaking out more to the mayor, to the council, looking forward to the budget to try to get this better under control. Thank you.
You're muted, Joe.
Joe, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Is there any more discussion on item number 2? And if not, to the maker of the order, would you want this complied with, or would you suggest we table it?
I mean, I think we should report it back out, and you know, if we need to, we'll file another one. But I think we got some good information here, and I will encourage Mike to work and make sure the announcements are updated as much as possible and as specific as possible, and get the temps in there so that we get caught up and then don't fall behind. So, and then obviously with the issues you got coming up with the purchase of trucks, that's long term.
Motion
I concur. So
motion item 2 is complied with.
Motion made and seconded that this order has been complied with. We'll make a report next Tuesday to the full city council, and then if we need to, take steps after that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 3 is in the middle of this discussion. We can either bypass it for a minute or take care of it real quickly. Pleasure of the committee.
I'd like to take care of it real quick.
Okay, off the table for discussion.
It's already off the table, so.
Yeah. Second.
This is introduced under my name. It's a request for $238.51 to be authorized from the personnel department's police fire identification account for an appropriation fiscal year 2021 services that were rendered in fiscal year 2020. These were unencumbered at the end of the 2020 year, so we have to do 2 things: approve that the appropriation be used for a prior year bill. On discussion, our auditor, Tanya Dojak, is with us. Tanya, can you join us for a minute?
Councilor McGivern, can you say the price again, the amount again?
It's $238.51.
Okay, thank you.
It's a health-related bill.
Thank you.
Tanya, could you just get us through this quick?
Sure. What this is it's a very old invoice from Meditrol from 2017, and what happened is they never received the check, so they put a stop payment on it, and the money went back into the account. But for some reason, the invoice was never paid, and they just recently reached out to the personnel department. So we did a little research and found that it had never been paid. So we want to get that paid for them.
I make a motion to approve it.
It's a legitimate invoice.
I'll second.
Excuse me?
It's a legitimate invoice.
Absolutely.
I make a motion to approve it.
Motion and second to approve. Is there any discussion? Councilor Barley.
Yeah, thank you. Just through the chair to Tanya. Tanya, is there something in writing that you can recommend to the city council or would consider recommending to city council where it's a de minimis amount that could just, this just could be maybe $500 or less, or something that's, if you could talk to your sisters and brothers in this field, so we don't have to have a $238.51 invoice before us for approval. I know it's prior year. I heard it. But is it? Can you just sort of? I don't need an answer now, Tanya. But please consider it, and maybe providing something for possible legislation to the finance chair, so we could not have to handle these little minuscule matters. Thank you.
Anything further? So the motion on the floor is that we adopt and approve both the appropriation of this year's monies, but being used for a prior year's invoice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Item 4 is, again, as Councilor Bartley pointed out, is off the table with the ongoing discussion. This one is specific to the $160,000 from stabilization to be transferred into the fire department's capital outlay vehicles, 160. Off the table is up for discussion. Off the table would be that we're discussing now the stabilization part, but we haven't heard from the fire chief tonight and from our alarm division coordinator, Joe O'Connor, as to the need for this particular vehicle. Jeff and Joe, thank you for joining us. Could you just remind us the status of the bucket truck itself that we're trying to replace, and where we are with the in terms of the need and priority? Jeff, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. This transfer is in regard to our 2002 International bucket truck that the alarm division currently uses to maintain the traffic signals throughout the city and the municipal alarm system. This truck was gifted to the department through the gas and electric back in 2015. The truck currently has 86,896 miles on it, with 13,370 hours on the engine. If you calculated out those hours into miles, that would be about 335,000 miles on that engine. The truck has been used by the gas and electric thoroughly. It was gifted to us. We maintained it and used it to the best of our abilities, and got as much life out of it as we could to save the city money 6 years ago. And we're proud of that. But it's time that this truck is retired for safety reasons. It will not pass mass inspection in September, and we felt it was prudent to approach the mayor and approach the council on a method to purchase a new truck.
Jeff or Joe, can you just tell us the specs for this truck? I think we all recognize what a bucket truck is. The G&E specs are actually different than yours in terms of their installation to electrical wires and safety features that I'm sure you have safety features needs for this truck. But what makes this truck special to the alarm division?
This truck will be a Ford F-550 2022 diesel 2-wheel drive. The boom on this truck is very different than the gas and electrics. If you look at the gas and electric truck, their lower boom is very large. Our boom would be very small. We have a telescopic boom inside our upper boom, so we can reach places a little bit easier. And our configuration, the way we do the traffic lights, do the municipal fire alarm system, will be easier if we use this truck.
And Chief or Joe, where did you get the estimates or the $160,000 request?
Sure, we've gone through Marcotte Ford and Holyoke. We wanted to keep the purchase local if we could. So the chassis and the frame of the truck will come from Marcotte Ford, and the boom itself will come from a company called Altec And Joe knows exactly where they are. They're not in Holyoke, but they specialize in installing these booms on these trucks.
And Marcotte works with them to get it, you know, to
Correct.
add the boom.
Correct.
That's affirmative, sir.
In working with the mayor, chief, the mayor suggested stabilization, obviously. Was there any feedback on that he shared with you?
I met with the mayor back in December 8th when I brought this to his attention. He did say that stabilization was his preference, and that you know, he would move it forward under those stipulations.
Chief, I did talk to the manager of the G&E today, and I know you've talked to him recently. Would
Correct.
you like to update everybody on that?
Sure. I reached out to Jim Lavelle. Jim really helped us out back in 2015 by gifting us that older truck that they were going to trade in. I did ask him if he had any boom trucks in his fleet that were in reserve or that he was looking to trade in. And he said in FY21, they currently have no trucks available for the same purposes that they did back in 2015. So there's no truck available for them to give to us.
There's also an issue, and I remember it back in 2015, where the G&E, you know, is supported by ratepayers, obviously, and there's very restrictive laws that prevent them from spending that money on certain areas.
Correct.
The way they did it in 2015 was they needed their capital outlay program needed new vehicles, new boom bucket trucks for their purposes, which, you know, they have obviously more than one. And they needed to, they had two choices. They could have traded that truck in, or they could have got rid of it, which was actually at that time cheaper for them to do it than having to pay to get rid of it at the point, because they had used it for their purposes and needed to take it offline. So that worked then. It might have been stretching it a little bit, but it is good imagination that worked out good for the fire department, and therefore good, I think, for everybody. But we appreciate it, but it's easier said than done.
Correct.
I think that explains the need, and we got the stabilization issue up for, you know, in front of us now. Councilor Leahy, then Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Chief Preskopowski, and thank you, Joe, for your outreach. And one of the things that I think both of you guys spoke about is the quality of the boom and making sure that it doesn't fail. So can maybe one of you guys, or either of you, or both of you, talk about how this just isn't safe for our guys and girls?
If I could, Chief?
Sure, go ahead.
There's deficiencies in the truck itself. The frame of the truck is starting to split and rot. So let's talking about the truck itself. It's old. It needs to be replaced, and that's why we're here. As for the aerial part of it, the hydraulic hoses are getting chafed. Where the bucket sits on the boom, it's wearing out. And to replace just the part of the boom, it's not worth it. The whole boom has to be replaced so the bucket seats properly. Those are two of the safety issues. There are a couple more.
No, I mean, you Joe, you said to me, I mean, God forbid this fails. I wouldn't want that on my head. And this is something I know that you guys waited a long time for, 300,000 miles, which, you know, equates to the hours that you guys have. So Chief Preskopowski, you spoke to the mayor in regards to this in December, you said, and he had suggested stabilization at that point. Could I ask Tanya, what exactly is our stabilization account now? What level is it at?
One sec. She takes her a second to get. She's with us, but just takes her a second to tune in. It's how Councilor Graney asked that question, I think, right as we were starting. But Tanya, do you have an answer for that? If it's, I'm gonna text her, make sure she's still with us.
Okay. So if you could do that, Joe, that'd be great. Also, Joe or Chief. So the last time you spoke to him, in regards to this was in December. Have you spoke to him since then?
I spoke to the mayor about a week ago in regard to this, and his preference hasn't changed.
Okay. Because there's some other areas that we could go after as well, because I'm all for this. As you know, and as I said to the Department of Public Works, I'm all for getting them the best equipment going. I think it's something it's the right thing to do. It's what we should do as a community. But what about bonding? Once again, I guess if our auditor was on, we could talk about that, or treasurer.
I'm actually here. I have to step
Okay.
away for a moment. What would you like to know?
No
Right, the first
problem.
thing is the free cash. Where are we at with the free cash limit?
Stabilization.
Stabilization, I'm sorry.
Well, what did you want to know about that?
How much do we
The
have?
balance.
We have 15,746,562. Sorry, my
15
dogs
million.
are going crazy.
And how much do we get approximately per month or quarter? Whoa. Somebody seems
Sorry,
hungry there.
somebody just walked in my house, so I
All right.
apologize.
So how much do we get monthly or quarterly, depending on how you look at it, for interest with that?
So you pay annually, actually, and the total bond was
No, not pay. How
one.
much do we get? No. How much do we get for interest for the stabilization account?
I'm not positive about that. It varies. Usually the treasurer takes care of that.
Okay. All right.
I can find out though.
My next question is, instead of taking it out of the stabilization and going for a bond, and maybe bonding for this and a truck for the Department of Public Works at the same time. I mean, would that make sense?
Sure. You can do that, yes.
So let me ask you, in your professional opinion, if you were sitting on this side of the desk, would you approve the money for the stabilization, or would you be requesting a bond for maybe 2 vehicles?
I have to say that I actually reached out to Cinder myself today to ask the same type of question to see what she thought about using stabilization for these purchases versus bonding. So I haven't heard back from her. Personally, I'm not really sure. I probably would bond. I would bond, but actually I would prefer a lease.
Right. So let me, can I know you can't speak for the mayor or maybe Chief Prescott-Powsey. Why is he, and I don't know the answer to this, why is he looking to go to the stabilization without, trying to go for the bond?
I can't really speak for him as far as that's concerned. I think maybe he just feels it's easier, if it wasn't going to cause any detriment, that it would be easier to pay the cash, not add additional debt onto the city's debt schedule. That's all I could say.
And I hear that, but one of the things I look at is when we go for bonding, not only is this generation, our generation, paying it, but next generation, maybe even a generation past that, are helping to pay for something that we're all going to utilize. I've always thought that was a good way to go. Can you, when you get the response from Cinder, can you shoot that over to me and everybody else on the finance committee, or maybe to Jeffrey, and he can send it out to, that'd be a great answer to hear. All right, thank you, Joe, and thank you, everyone.
Councilor, just on Councilor Leahy's question, Tanya, can you just let us know the issue of, and I know the mayor was discussing it with, and by the way, for everybody, when we say Cinder, Cinder's our bond counsel, Cinder McNerney. Tanya, the issue of bonding for middle schools without a debt exclusion option, which obviously there isn't one out there, what are the concerns there down the road coming up with relation to other bonding?
I believe that what the mayor was inquiring about is if we take on additional debt at this point, is that going to impact us going for bonding for the middle school in the long run?
Okay, and that's an answer that we're waiting for from bond counsel?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and I can forward that answer when I get it.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, I've got a couple of hands up. As soon as I will put Councilor Rainey and Councilor Bacon in the queue. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have 2 people in front of both of you.
Okay.
Councilor Sullivan.
Okay, thank you. So Chief Prespakowski, I'd like to go back to the question, first of all, about bonding. Did you ask, I know the mayor favored the other, did you ever point blank ask him about bonding?
I've asked him about all three methods. I've asked him about stabilization. I asked him about bonding. I asked him about leasing.
And, okay.
He preferred stabilization as option A.
And did you have the numbers, any, on a lease to own option? Did you actually have the numbers? He had those numbers in front of him?
I didn't have the numbers when I spoke to him on the phone. I do have the numbers now, though.
Okay, so that would be new information for the mayor at this point also.
Correct.
Okay, and do we know what the lease to own package would look like?
Yes. So let me get my paperwork here. A lease to own through Ford Motor Credit. It was an annual 5.25%. It would be for 5 years. For $160,000. It would roughly be about $35,291 a year for 5 years, with ownership at the end of 5.
All right, and why did we pick 5 years and not 7 or 10? Is that the most the leasing company would go out on it?
I think that was the one that the leasing company gave to us.
That was the most they would go?
That was the most they would go, correct.
Okay. And just to address some of the other councilors' concerns about the safety of the equipment, it's not just the safety. I'm very much in favor of getting this vehicle for piece of equipment. First of all, anything that's coming as a hand-me-down, as a gift from another department, they've already decided it's not suitable for service. All right, that's number one. And number two, it's the safety not only of the people operating the equipment, but not having a reliable piece of equipment when a traffic signal goes down, and not having it in service and immediately available to fix that is what's also putting the public at risk, not only the operator in the vehicle, by not having a timely response to these problems. So I'm very much in favor of this. I'm not at all in favor of using stabilization, especially in a lease to own program, which is something we should be doing anyways, and rotating vehicles not only here, but in the DPW as well, out on a regular basis, as I think we've gone over that many times in the past. And I think just any other thoughts, you know, as far as, I think to answer one other question we had earlier, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tanya, but the minimum amount we'd be seeing on our stabilization would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $315,000 a year. That'd be at 2%. And we've done much better than that every year, at least for the 6 years that I've been on the council. And lastly, as far as the use of stabilization, the equipment itself does not, doesn't really move the needle that much, the amounts we're looking for here tonight, as much as it affects, as far as doing the schools and stuff like that go. What it does is when we start tapping it for other purposes that we should not be using stabilization for, that's when the credit rating agencies start to look unfavorably on us and our bond rating. Thank you. That's it.
Councilor Tallman?
Thank you through the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff, on this vehicle, what is the drop dead date on you know, getting this new vehicle? I mean, how long will the one you currently have before the inspection comes?
The inspection is due in September. So time is of the essence to get this truck ordered. There is a lead time. There's not, these trucks just don't sit on a lot. They need to be spec'd and they need to be built, you know, from the ground up. So there is some lead time, you know, getting this truck built. So, you know, the truck will be up for reinspection in September, and you know, hopefully we have a decision by by then, and we're moving towards a good solution.
Okay, and also, what is the length, average age of a new vehicle that you'd be purchasing in years?
How long will it last, do you
Yes,
think? Is that
yeah.
your question? We're hoping for 20 years, at
Okay.
least. Yeah. The one we bought back in '93 lasted 20 years. And, you know, we have the in-house EVT mechanic now too, which is going to enhance preventative maintenance on this vehicle, and hopefully we get more years out of it than we have in the past.
Yeah, that's good to know. That and it's really lucky that we got the G&E to get this, the other one, to get a number of years out of that vehicle and saving the city some money. It's a difficult decision. I think that, you know, it's in our hands. I'm 100% for the purchase of this vehicle, but we have to look at all options. And right now we're just looking at the stabilization, but there are also other options as such as bonding and how this would affect our bond rating if we took it out of there. And I think, you know, when you bond, you're paying interest. How much is that going to affect us compared to taking out of stabilization is a question we have to sort of answer. But
lease is the same way, Pete. Lease, you know, there's going to be interest paid on the lease also. So
the interest too on the lease, right. The only way out of not paying extra is this if it comes out of stabilization, or if there was some other source of funding that we could find out of some kind of line item somewhere in the city. But apparently we don't have that right now. But thank you for the work you're doing. Hopefully we can get this vehicle to you shortly.
Thank you.
Councilor Graney, then Councilor Bacon.
Yeah, quickly, I think Councilor Sullivan probably answered my first. I was looking to see what the APR of the stabilization fund was, and he said a minimum at 2% would generate about $300,000. My second question is to Chief Breskopowski or to Joe. The terms of the lease, I would imagine, as well as the terms of the purchase, would include complete maintenance and warranty for the 5-year term.
Good question, Chief. Do we have an answer for that?
The truck itself,
Chief, you were frozen for a second.
oh, I'm sorry. Joe, do you have the specifics on the warranty?
The warranty is 3 years, 36,000 miles on that. Under the lease, I have to apologize, I do not have that information if it is greater than that, sir.
Well, Joe, you better not be driving it out for a lunch pickup then.
Just one other thing too, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilor Graney.
Joe, it looks a heck of a lot warmer where you are than where we are today. How'd you get there so fast?
Councilor
I was
Bacon.
just saying the same thing.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our auditor, I was just interested. I thought I heard her say that she liked the third option of the lease over either of the other two, stabilization or bonding, and I was just wondering if she could speak to that a little bit more.
Oh, she said bonding.
So I would prefer, yes, I'd prefer bonding or the lease, but the reason why is for the same reasons that were already mentioned. If you lease, okay, you have a lease, you have a placeholder in your budget. It gives you the opportunity to work with what you have so that you don't have to continuously bond or continuously take from stabilization or other areas.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much. And I would just say to the committee that I would see the leasing option as the most favorable. And I guess the one question I would have is if we did lease and say we are able to get ourselves into a tighter fiscal management situation, are we able to buy out of the lease early if our cash situation improves?
Some of the leases do have an early payoff with no penalty. Not all of them do, but you can ask for that.
Okay, so that seems to me like that might be a win-win. So thank you for that.
Tanya, this might be difficult to answer this evening, but on the bonding, if we bonded for 15 or 20 years, you have a rough idea what the interest would be on that?
So they didn't, let's see, the coupon rate is 0.750, but that was actually for 1,040,000. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think so, and I'll be a little bit more specific to everybody. I do like, especially in this particular case, the lease to own, because it's a potential of a 20-year vehicle, and I think the extra money we would pay would be about 19,000, pushing 20,000 over the request here this evening. But on the lease to own, Jeff, are we saying this would come out of the fire department budget on an annual basis?
Well, we'd have to budget for it, through the budgetary process. There's no money existing in the budget to, there's no $35,000 line that I can go to right now to pay for this. We'd have to budget for it in a capital outlay process. Okay.
Would the first payments be next fiscal year as we order this, or are you going to have some money up front to get this this truck being built?
I'd like to start budgeting for it in the FY22 budget if we could, just to get the placeholder in place, and we could make that $35,000 payment, right off the bat and start chipping away at it. I'd prefer that.
And that's the it needs to be part of the discussion to see if we like lease to own. We're adding to a budget that already has a lot of holes in it, but we have to do something, and I think, in this particular case, the numbers do make sense. Is there any further discussion? I see Mike McManus's hand is up. Mike?
So I just, two points. Tanya had mentioned the coupon rate for a bond at 0.75%. That was for a 5-year bond for these vehicles. The 7-year bond, the coupon rate was 1%. So I think if we were to go out 10, 15 years for a bond, then that coupon rate would go up. But I think with past experience in the city, that the rate would not approach the 5% that the chief sought for his lease to owns. The lease to own quotes that we received for our equipment, there's 2 different payment options where you either start that first year's payment at delivery, or your first year payment is 1 year after delivery, if that makes any sense. But if you're deferring that first year, your payment is going to be higher, and the total that you pay is going to be a little bit higher for the equipment.
Annual payment's going to be higher, or
both annual payment and therefore the total
eventually
payment.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I when I say I like the numbers, it's at 5.25% that I like a lot. Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, first of all, it's a great discussion. I just looking at the numbers for the lease. In 5 years, we're only paying $16,455 in interest. And if we just took $160,000 out of stabilization and we had it out of there for 5 years, we would probably lose somewhere in the vicinity of $37,000 or $38,000 in interest based on some of our last results. So just in that aspect, leasing versus stabilization makes sense. But in all of these cases, we should always be checking the 3 and compare the interest that we lose in stabilization versus the interest we would pay in bonding, and which one of those puts the city in a better financial position. Stabilization, if stabilization was used and we were saving money, I don't think that would negatively impact our bond rating. But if we're using stabilization and it's not improving our financial performance, then that makes a difference. But I agree with everybody there. Leasing seems to be the way to go here.
Thank you. Well said. Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, I just want to clarify something I said earlier, and it ties in with what Councilor Murphy said. I'm not sure I explained it correctly, but using bonding right now for what we're talking about for all this equipment tonight doesn't move the needle enough to affect our ability to borrow for schools. Using stabilization is frowned upon, and the use of the stabilization could affect that bond rating that we enjoy now that gives us that low interest rate for doing stuff like schools and all of that. So that's,
Right.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion on the fire department's request here? We have in front of us the request. It's specific, you know, to use stabilization. Is the committee looking to make a recommendation that we report it out to deny the use of stabilization and ask the mayor and fire chief to put a lease to own in front of us?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, I hear a motion. Motion that we deny the
Motion
use of
deny.
stabilization, but we ask that the mayor with the fire chief, fire department, put a lease to own in front of us. Perhaps we can actually vote on it next Tuesday, recognizing this, the order has to get out there in order for it to be in before that September inspection. So there is a sense of urgency here is what I'm trying to say. Chief, do you think this is doable if the mayor agrees?
I have the numbers now, Counselor. I just need to get to the mayor.
Okay, so why don't we suggest that that's our recommendation, and we'll hear from the mayor between now and next Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Joe, can you just, Councilor McGivern, can you just back up? What's our suggestion?
The motion on the floor is to deny the use of stabilization with a recommendation to the mayor and the chief of the fire department that we enter into a lease to own for a fire bucket truck, alarm division bucket truck.
What about the fact, if I could, just
Councilor, yeah.
I think, you know, leasing is more expensive down the road, but if we bonded for that, and if we piggybacked it with the needs of the Department of Public Works, I think that'd be less expensive.
I'm listening.
And I would certainly like to hear what Cinder has to say in reply to the message that was left today.
I'm sorry.
I guess I would just like to hear what Cinder, there's a message that was sent out to Cinder today in regards to what her thoughts were and how we should handle this. I'd like to hear those thoughts. But I would also be one,
there's a
I kind of
message
go along
about
with Councilor Sullivan, and I think that it's statistically, it's significant if we bond for it. Maybe it is, but it'd be much worse, much more statistically significant if we take out a stabilization. So I'm not for that. But I mean, I would do it if that was the last thing we had to do. But I would like to bond over a lease.
Okay, I hear you. I understand. I think that the first message is it doesn't seem there's a consensus to use stabilization when there's other options out there. Right now, what's on the table is the lease to own, because of that. What the chief has in front of him is a 5.25% interest rate on this for 5 years, to pay it off in 5 years at $35,000, a little more annual. And then we would have a vehicle that should last us 20 years. Bonding, we would to get that type of rate would have to go out do it a little bit less. And I hear you, but I'm not too sure that the savings are much different or better. The addition to the $160,000 request by lease to own is a little bit less than 20,000. The bonding could be a little bit higher.
But we also have to look at the other side too. When you lease a car, for instance, if you go over the 15,000 miles, you're whacked pretty significantly. Leasing is, people seem to think that leasing is a great deal. I think purchasing is a much better deal because you own it.
Chief, you have your hand up?
I do, and Councilor Leahy brings up a point that I think we should all think about in merging this whole package with the DPW and the fire department. Might make sense bonding wise if you look at it long term, where your lease to own percentage for one vehicle, you're paying $16,000 or $17,000 over the 5 years. If you package the whole deal in one bond for 5 years, you're going to pay a little bit more in interest, but you're
Jeff, we lost your audio again.
I lost Jeff.
Can't hear you, Jeff.
Jeff, can you hear us?
He's frozen.
Jeff?
Great. As soon as he was agreeing with me, he goes silent.
Jeff, we lost you right about
You made some
the,
good points, Jim.
right after you told Councilor Leahy how smart he was.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I agree with Councilor Leahy.
Yay.
Yay.
So what I was saying was the lease to own for the fire department vehicle only would come to about, with the interest, would come to about $16,000 or $17,000 over the life of the lease. If you package the DPW vehicles and the fire department vehicle,
We lost him again.
Lost him
There
again.
we go again.
Right when it gets to the good part.
Maybe Joe can take it up. Maybe Joe can figure it out and answer that for us. You know anything about leasing, Joe, and the bonding?
I
Lose
don't.
Joe?
This is Jeffrey's specialty.
Yeah, I know.
If I could,
Okay, Mike McManus has got his hand up. Chief, we're gonna let Mike do a little bit. I think he's on the same page with you.
okay.
so we did, we looked at lease to own for our DPW vehicles. The chief provided his numbers for leasing to own. So if we went with a big package for that $1,040,000 need for vehicles, over the course of 5 years, the total lease cost would be 1.41 or $1,141,500. So we'd be looking at an additional $100,000 over just purchasing the equipment if we did the 5-year lease. Cinder provided a 5-year and a 7-year bond and a debt schedule associated with that. For the 5-year bond, our total payment back would be $1,074,500. For the 7-year bond, the total payment back would be $1,092,000. So with those options, you know, the annual lease, the city would have to add $230,000 to the budget every year for the next 5 years to pay for these vehicles. For the 5-year bond, we'd be looking at an additional $215,000, and for a 7-year bond, it would be another $156,000 that would have to be budgeted every year for the 7 years of that bond.
Thank you.
And then leasing this type of equipment is a little bit different than your lease if you were to lease a car from Marcotte or somewhere where we wouldn't be taking these vehicles to Marcotte to get the oil changed. It's more of a financing mechanism where you can purchase equipment through these dealerships. And at the end of the term, the city would own it. We wouldn't have to turn it back into the dealership and work on another lease. And that there's no mileage cap either.
Okay, Michael, thank you. And I think that is saying Councilor Leahy's a pretty smart guy tonight. But let's explore this a little bit more. Jeff, on the $35,921 annual, was that without interest?
No, that was with interest.
That was with interest. Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure.
Yep.
And I think the Mike McManus makes a good point that we're not leasing your day-to-day vehicles, obviously.
Right.
I have a little elf telling me on my shoulder that we do have a response back from Cinder. Tanya, can you share that with us?
Hey, Joe, before she does that, can I just say that I spoke to Councilor Barley. He had to step away for a couple of minutes for personal reasons.
I'm back.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jim.
So, did you want me to read this response?
Yes, McNerney is our bond counsel, and Tanya Dojak is our auditor, who's going to give us Cinder's response.
Hold on a second. I'm just trying to pull up my. I actually had Jeff email it to all of you as well, just so you know. She says, from our perspective, 2 things for the city to consider in connection with the questions you asked below. First, interest rates are extremely low and there's never been a better time to borrow than now. In that regard, it makes sense to take advantage of that and borrow the money for the vehicles. It won't affect the ability to bond for the schools. Having the $1 million of stabilization funds remain intact by not using it provides opportunity and flexibility for when it makes sense to use it, if ever. Having it on your balance sheet as a component of your reserve position in and of itself is a value regarding the credit rating. But having it available to provide flexibility when you need it or want it is also a safeguard and may provide opportunity. As an example, but without knowing more.
How are you doing today?
Can you hear me?
Okay, you're all set. Go ahead.
As an example, but without knowing more of what, if any, impact using it would have on the credit picture of the city, it might come in handy when there is a school project to mitigate the cost of debt service in the upfront years or something else. But have that available to provide strength to the city's financial position and flexibility is, in our thinking, better than using it to avoid debt issuance in this extremely favorable environment to borrow for capital. That's what she says.
I think Cinder just said what Councilor Murphy and Councilor Leahy said to us this evening.
Yeah. I think you're right.
What Councilor Bartley said multiple times.
And Councilor Bartley always says it.
Always says it.
So let's pat each other on the back.
Good job, Councilor.
I guess nobody listened to a word I said tonight then, right?
Well,
Councilor Sullivan, I mean, you know, I opened up the meeting to try to make this a group effort, but I guess we want to be individuals, so let's keep going.
No.
Let's get it done.
I don't.
Let's all work together. Part of the solution.
Thank you. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
I'm trying to compliment everybody and say this discussion has been very productive.
Great
discussion. I think our department heads, I think including Tanya, Jeff, and Mike this evening have been wonderful in giving us the answers that we need to know. I think we have our thoughts, and I think we understand that stabilization is not what we want to do at this point in time, and we need to go forward. So with that in mind, I think everybody's doing a great job. Where would you like to go next? Councilor Sullivan?
Yep, have my hand up. Chief, as far as or you can ask Mike McManus, either one, why are we just stopping at 7 years on the bond, and why not, if the vehicle's life is 10 years, why aren't we looking at a 10-year bond? And the reason I'm suggesting that is just going by the lease to own, never mind the savings on the bond part. But as far as making the annual appropriate, you know, the amount that must be appropriated annually out of the department, the burden less by spreading it out over a little bit of time.
When I presented the auditor with the, when I inquired about the bond length and if we could actually do it, the numbers came back for 5 and 7. That's the reason why I have the 5 and 7.
Tanya, is there a reason we couldn't go 10?
No, there's not. I mean, there's not that I did. Mike McManus actually was the one that requested the 5 and 7 year information. So that's what I asked for.
Mike, is that just to compare it with the lease option?
Yeah, it was to compare it. And also, you know, we push our vehicles a lot farther than most other municipalities or other people would. So I think if you look in the literature for the bucket truck, it's not going to say the average useful life is 20 years. It's going to be closer to 7 or 10 years, like you're suggesting. There wouldn't be any harm in getting a schedule for a 10 or 15 year debt service for these vehicles.
Well, ideally, would we want to? How often would we want to rotate a trash truck out?
A trash truck, probably every 12 years.
Okay, so all I'm suggesting to everybody is that, you know, if we went with a 10-year bond, it'd cost a little bit more, as we've heard that the bond, you know, the bond interest is so low right now, borrowing is so low. But as far as what we'd have to budget for capital outlay in each department every year would be more affordable. You wouldn't be, for example, on this one, you wouldn't be, I'm just roughing out numbers in my head, but you might not be looking at a $35,000 annual payment. You'd be looking at a $17,000 annual payment. Am I on base here, Tanya?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor
Mr.
Bartley?
Chairman,
Councilor Graney, you'll be next after Councilor Bartley.
Joe, have Howie go first. I'll wait.
Councilor Graney.
yeah, just quickly, once again, we have to assume, or we have to make sure that the bond is, the rate is not a graduated rate where the interest rate could increase with the prime rate and all that stuff. So, you know, the finances could be more complicated than that. But I believe if we do bond, that the rate would stay the same. If it's at 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, it would stay the same for the life of the bond. Is that true, Tanya?
Yes, that's true. You could do either. You can choose what you want to do, but we usually just keep the same interest rate.
Fixed rate.
A fixed rate. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Bartley.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just a point of order to the chair. So I just want to, before I make a motion, I just want to get the chair's direction. Are we, I think we heard what we heard. So, and I think the bell rang pretty clear there. So for in terms of 4, 5, 6, and at least 7, do we want to, does the chair want to entertain entertain a motion to dispose of these as a package? So I'm just putting that, you don't need to answer that now, Joe, but I just want to have you consider that before we get into motion disposing things. Second of all, I want to make a motion now that we send the communication, specifically the bond counsel's email and the rest of that email chain to the city clerk for to be posted as a communication to the next city council meeting, which is Tuesday, March 2nd. So that's motion 1, and then motion, thank you. And motion 2 is to send a copy of that to the mayor, and as well. And so I'd like to just so that's my motion right now. Whenever you want to take it up, Joe. I don't want to step on your toes. So.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Don't we have a motion on the floor already, Councilor McEwen?
We have an amendment being offered by Councilor Bartley that was seconded by Councilor Tallman, is the way I see it. But, you know, for purposes of discussion, just one thing I wanted to point out is on item number 5, it's not from stabilization. It's not.
No, that's what I wanted to, yeah.
It's not.
So we can't vote on that, can we?
So,
yes, we
well,
can.
maybe, well, 4, 6, and 7, I certainly want to. But 4, 6, and 7, I like to at least package those because those are stabilization.
I'll second the motion.
Package those and just refer them back to city council with no recommend. You want to say no recommendation, Joe, just to be diplomatic?
Second.
No, we actually have to
Deny.
We're trying to get a consensus here, because we cannot, you know, give anything leave to withdraw, which is an appropriation.
Oh, I'll make a motion to deny.
Is to deny because of stabilization.
Right.
So I'll motion to suspend rules, take 4, 6, and 7 as a package, and that's 1, and the motion is to deny.
Okay. Councilor Leahy, I know you made the original motion. Are you okay with?
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just.
I had to step away, Joe. I had a family emergency, so.
You're fine.
So my intention, Councilor McGivern, is I will deny this, but with my intention to Jeff and the chief and the fire department, and also to Mike McManus, is my rationale is I'm going to vote for bonding, and I'm going to hopefully bond for vehicles for the Department of Public Works and for the fire department. And so that's what I'm doing tonight.
Understood.
Yeah, Joe.
So the chair is hearing a consensus that on 4, 6, and 7, we make a motion that we deny the transfer from stabilization. The idea being the communications will be sent on the other motions from both our bond counsel and a message that we're looking for both departments to get together and work with the mayor, the auditor, the treasurer to put a bonding package together.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for saying that, because I was going to make a point because I don't want to get off the floor yet, but I wanted to make, besides the motion to refer that communication and deny, I wanted to make another motion to emphasize that we get a bond recommendation from the mayor right away for the March 2nd meeting. And then I just want to make one last comment, is that, and this again, we're working as a team here. We're working collectively, not independent agents. But I would point out to the chair and to anybody listening, this is kind of sort of what we were hopeful to do at the last full city council meeting. I know we couldn't do it then and there, Joe, but it was to say that, especially to the chief and to Joe, that we wanted to get something more realistic and tangible at the last, so we would have it now before us. That went by the wayside. Nobody's fault. Not point fingers. Nobody's fault. But that's what we were hopeful to do, and we were kind of asking the mayor through the even get a late file, and that just fell on deaf ears. So thank you.
No, it didn't fall on deaf ears. Both you and Councilor Swallow, and I fully recognize that.
No, not you, Joe. I'm just saying the mayor. Because Joe, there's nothing you can do, and we knew that.
Listen to what I'm saying. No, I'm just saying I understood exactly what you two were saying and others at the city council meeting. My only thoughts were the way I voted to get it into committee was to keep, at the moment, keep control of our destiny.
Right.
And I'm glad we did, because I think between our 3 department heads this evening and with the great email we got from our bond counsel, we learned a lot in terms of where we want to go. And I think it's, in the long run, it would have worked both ways, but I think this might be the quicker way if we get the response back for next Tuesday. Any further discussion? Councilor Bacon. No. Linda, you still with us?
I think she's muted.
Can you hear
Linda,
me now?
Councilor Bacon. Yep, we can hear you now.
Thank you. My only question would be that as we're considering the longer term bond and the interest rates increase with the length of the bond, that we consider what the total cost will be over time in comparison to the lease. I understand the lease makes a harder hit for the duration of the lease, but I think if we go out 10 years, we're going to find that the total cost that we're paying is quite a bit more. So if we could just be aware of that, I think it would be useful.
Here.
Well, if I could through the chair, I don't believe you could do leases for that long.
No, the lease is, no, right. The lease is 5 years, so it is a bigger hit each year of the lease.
Right. Not before that.
Correct. So I just want to make sure that we're considering the total cost and also making sure that interest rate on the bond doesn't get so close to the lease interest rate that it's not too much of a difference. That's all. Thanks.
A point well taken. I think what we're asking is our department heads with that take that into consideration with the bond package and the life expectancy of the vehicles, because we're putting more than one vehicle into the same package, in that we look for the best number to come back to us from the mayor for next Tuesday.
Right. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. That was my point too, to try to look at both ideas and what's the best savings for the city, and to get this package to the mayor and try to get this this bond proposal together so we can get this moving.
Here.
Councilor McGivern, just one last question. I didn't get a chance to read it, but didn't we hear from our city auditor that Cinder sent an email saying that purchasing is better than leasing it? Didn't we already get the answer to that? Then again, I haven't had a chance to read
We got it.
the email.
The
But that's what
email,
it seems to be.
the email is more about,
Borrowing.
not using stabilization. I don't want to summarize it, but not, the plus and minuses of not using stabilization and going out and borrowing is more or less what Cinder is saying. I don't think she got into the specifics of leasing and bonding.
Okay, I'll take a look. Thank you.
And I read it quickly, Councilor Leahy, so, forgive me if I.
No, you did a good job. I'm just trying to gather as much information as I can.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Rainey?
yeah, I believe that also what was said, that it is an ideal time right now to borrow.
Right.
Good point. Okay, so I'm hearing a motion with multiple motions that we're looking at right here. But on these three items, the first motion is that we report out of committee. Our recommendation is to deny the use of stabilization for the purposes of, one, looking for a bond package from the mayor, hopefully by next Tuesday, with the work of the department heads, the auditor, and if necessary, the bond counsel through the treasurer's department. Two, that we forward our email answer to the mayor and from Cinder McNerney, our bond counsel. And David, what was three? There's one more.
We're gonna send it to the clerk as a communication
Communication.
for the next agenda.
And put it on the next agenda so we have the answer from Cinder officially.
And
anything else that I missed? Councilor Bartley.
Mr. Chair, I thought I heard the Ward 5 councilor indicate, and I think Jimmy might have as well, about giving us a lease option. I mean, if we're going to be doing the hard work, we should at least have a range of options from which to have a discussion at the next finance committee meeting after the March 2nd full city council. I mean, I don't want us to have to, be in this bottleneck, right? So that if we're going to have a range of options, let's have the options before us. So let's have I hope the motion says bond and or lease, and these are your options, and then that we can get some really good feedback from the department heads who, from my estimation, they're on point on this stuff, and we'll have some hard numbers from which to choose at next finance meeting.
Second.
Gotcha. And controlling our destiny is exactly what we're doing. But just remember, the way this is working is this report's coming out Tuesday, and in particular to the bucket truck, and then there is an urgency on the DPW vehicles too. We're looking to see if we can get something back very quickly to vote on, so we can get the specs out, the vehicles ordered, and hopefully in terms of the bucket truck, ready by September. So when mass inspection comes along, we have a new vehicle to be inspected. Gotcha. What we typically do here is, I will reach out to the mayor, Tanya will reach out to the mayor, Mike and Jeff, I'm sure, will reach out to the mayor and hear all the concerns and wishes of the city council, and hopefully we get that menu in front of us next Tuesday. That fair?
Yes.
Fair?
Yeah, sounds good.
Good
Okay,
job.
I think everybody hears it. If there's no questions, Councilor Bacon, you all set?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Just see a blue hand. That's all. On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And to our administrative assistant, Jeff, you got all that?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, for the most part. I might reach out to you tomorrow for clarification just to
No
make sure.
problem. I'm going to be reaching out to everybody tomorrow.
He gets my meetings, Joe. He'll get yours.
I'm impressed. Believe me.
Motion to take item number 5 off the table for discussion.
Second the motion.
Motion made second to take item number 5 off.
Well, it's before us, so.
All those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
The only reason we kept this separated is where the money's coming from. It's and Mike, will you please follow up on this question? These items are going into trash capital outlay. What are you looking to purchase in terms of vehicles or lease? Skip item number 9 for the minute. But in terms of trash vehicles and recycling, what are these capital outlay purchases going to get the DPW?
So for the trash vehicle, it would be a rear loader.
One
one rear loader. And for the recycling, it would get us 2 rear loaders. So you're familiar with the recycling trucks that we have now in the city. They have the side tipper that lifts up and over into the truck, and then they fill up. There's no compaction with those, and when it fills up, the guys have to break away from the route and dump. Otherwise, they can't pick up any more material. There's new to us innovations in recycling collection for dual streams, where there's it's a rear packer recycling truck. It could be a trash truck too. It looks just like the trash trucks, except down the middle of the body. If you could picture separating the driver's side and the passenger side of the storage compartment, there's a wall, and there's a packer for each one of those spaces. What that allows us to do is compact the recycling material that we collect throughout the day, and it will reduce the amount of runs that we need to make to dump. Our guys are losing a lot of time with that. With the new recycling agreement that we have with the MRF, where it costs the city money now to dispose of recycled materials. The city opted to split paper to go to Sunoco, and our bottles and cans to go to the MRF. So what the guys have to do is they have to go to Sunoco, dump the cardboard, and then go to the MRF in Springfield. And it's added time for disposal than if they were to just when they used to just go to the MRF in Springfield. So with these rear compactors, they'd be able to go throughout the day, and they wouldn't have to dump multiple times during the day.
Mike, is part of that problem because China's no longer taking plastics?
Yeah.
Okay, so one trash truck and 2 recyclables.
Correct.
With the new design.
With the new design.
And what's the total for all 3?
$890.
Yeah, 880.
880.
And Tanya,
Yes.
now I think is the time to explain to all of us this item known as real estate. There's a request for $220,000 coming out of it to pay for part of the proposal before us. Could you explain that to us?
Sure. So what the sale of real estate account is actually formed through Mass General Law, and it is for assets that the city actually owns and sells off. So what the law actually says is proceeds of the estate or other disposal of real estate, including taken by eminent domain by another governmental unit, but other than that required through tax title foreclosure. So this is actually real estate that we own and have sold. So all of that money goes into what they call this sinking fund.
Okay, and this is higher than usual. Would that be because of the Lynch School property sale?
That's correct.
Okay, and I have not got a chance, but I'm going to follow up on it. Is, you know, any property the city sells, there are reverter clauses put on the sale. And because the Lynch School hasn't started yet, I just want to make sure that if we use this money this evening, that it's available. And I think the law department can answer that. Thank you.
They've started at Lynch.
They have started?
Yeah.
They started with the demo, yeah.
Okay. Because it's you know, until they spend money, the reverter clause could always kick in. But that's thank you. That's good news.
Good news.
Okay, I don't know who was up first, so I apologize, but I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna go with Counselor Sullivan because I haven't recognized him first all night, and he always takes me to task on that.
Thank you. And I hope I can return the favor to everybody else by answering their questions before they answer mine. So, if we approve this into the sale of real estate into the trash capital outlay, this would in effect reduce the amount that we have to bond for to 820,000. Is that what I'm understanding? This would go to, I guess, to Tanya or.
That's correct.
Well, don't forget, we're putting the fire truck in the package too.
I've got that, but if it's 880,000 for everything Mike wants, right?
Yeah.
And then we knock 220 off, that knocks us to 660. We add 160 to that, then we're at 820.
Yep.
Okay.
He's a numbers man. Good job.
Calculator works quicker than mine, I guess.
He's got a good mind.
I got that one at 6th grade Kirtland School, so. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So with this approval of item 5, we'd only be looking for 820 in bonding. So all of the numbers that we have previously looked at now for what our annual load for debt service would be approximately 20% less than what we've been looking at right along so far tonight.
Amen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I want to just take a slightly different tact on that one, but before I do, just through the chair to Tanya, the auditor, our appointee. Tanya, what is the balance of that cost that center that line item right now with the whatever that number is?
You want to know the amount of money that's in that fund?
That's what the 59710 whatever that's whatever that's right.
Yep, it's 268,000.
Okay, 268s are current, and so it's through the chair to Tanya. This does not include geriatric authority. Is that true?
There was $32,000 when we started, and the money that's in there now is from the sale of the Lynch School.
Okay, so that's plus Lynch. So it does not include geriatric because we haven't closed on that, but that's another $250,000 coming along. So that's something for, we're all of us here are aware of that, but the public at large is paying attention, may not be aware of the $250,000 that's going to be added to that. And so that leads me to my last point for now, Mr. Chairman, is that if we're going to do this relative to number 8, well, maybe actually before I don't know if we can even do it, but if we could, is it possible that the city council could approve a transfer? This is through the chair to Tanya, if you can answer it. Approve a transfer from the sale of real estate to snow removal services. Is that allowed by mass law, if you're aware?
You could, yes, I'm pretty sure that you could. I'd have to read the law. I can do it quick if you want. It says.
Well, no, it does no, because I'm speculating right now, and even if it says what I think you're going to say, we don't have that authority at this level. That has to come from the mayor. So I would just like to throw it on the table for this body to consider that why in the world would we not want to, I get that it's 220,000, but there's also 268 in there. And if we wait it out, there's going to be 268 plus 250 in short order if we're really concerned about cutting back on the bond. And by the way, we can always use that to pay down the bond early, I'm sure. Why in the world would we want to take for a second time? Well, first of all, I'm not going to vote for it. So there, let me make myself clear on that. I did it once, but I'm not going to vote a second time to remove from stabilization 100,000 for snow removal. But why in the world would we not want to give the stabilization leave to withdraw and then have file another motion to ask the mayor, and we can pass on the floor Tuesday. We can get it done just that fast. Have the mayor give us an order to pay $100,000 from the sale of real estate. I mean, that's how fast it could happen, as opposed to going through these gyrations on stabilization. So that's just food for thought. I hope councilors consider it if they think it makes sense. Thank you.
Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just see this sale of real estate. And Mike, this is to you, Mike, if you're there. This is for one trash truck, right? A rear loader trash truck?
Correct.
And you need this pretty badly, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I just, my thing is to take the sale of real estate, this is just my opinion, and use that towards the purchase of the trash truck and to keep our bond proposal lower. So my thing is to go along with this sale of real estate towards the purchase of a trash truck that is definitely needed for the Department of Public Works. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess what I would like to see would be any cash that we have available in the city moved into the line to pay for the snow when we get to that agenda item. I'm comfortable with using it to reduce the debt, but I also like the idea that if we know there's more money coming into it, to use it for the operation. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan, do you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I do. So this would be a question for the chair. So now I understand it's $268,000. It's in the sale of real estate. And one of the orders that we denied, order number 6, included that other missing $48,000.
That's correct. I was going to point that out, but you're right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is still just going to be sitting there. So if we proceed right now, as we've done, there's still $48,000 sitting there that would be available in very short order for any snow removal. And also, I know we're jumping in on item 8 here, but also I don't see us putting the 220 over towards that and tying that up on a $100,000 request. And thirdly, as far as that goes, we have 2 more meetings of the full council on the 2nd and 16th. If there was a big snowstorm or something that happened before then, we could act quickly. So I wouldn't want to hold up the 220. Could go immediately, as far as I can see, almost, tonight we approve it, and be at the will of the council on Tuesday, Mike could get busy getting the orders placed for these vehicles.
One vehicle.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy and Councilor Leahy.
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead.
As Vice Chair, will you take over for 2 minutes? Councilor Murphy has the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. So I kind of agree. And Mike, just a question. So if we do the 220 on Tuesday, and as opposed to having the mayor come in and doing a bond for the 1.04, how much does that delay the purchase of that one vehicle? Is it weeks? Is it months?
Delay the purchase of the vehicle?
Yeah. So if we did not approve the 220, which I'm inclined to do, I'm assuming by doing the 220 now, that can accelerate the process of getting that vehicle, especially if we have to go on bond for the others. Am I correct in that or no?
Well, I think as soon as you approve anything, whether you approve the bond or the 220, it allows us to start the procurement process.
Okay.
And would you just with either the vehicles that we would be buying, we are buying off state bid.
Okay.
So that really streamlines procurement.
So if we pass that 220, do you have an idea when you get that vehicle?
7 months.
7 months?
Yeah. Yeah, it takes 90 days to get the chassis, and then another 3 months to get the Packer body on it, and then all the hydraulic connections, electrical connections. Yeah, it's a 6-month lead time for this equipment.
Wow.
Long time. Let's get it moving.
Yeah. But that is, so that's also a factor in terms of planning ahead of time, that we need to look a year or two out rather than getting it where we're starting to have it. Anytime we get to that point, we gotta have a plan ahead of time. But okay, thanks, Mike.
Counselor Bacon?
I'm all set. I just don't know how to put my hand down on the phone.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't see any other hands. All right. I'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve the transfer of real estate to purchase the one trash truck. All right, Tallman. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Tallman and Sullivan seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I oppose it.
So does it go, just so I have this correctly, it's myself, Sullivan, Bacon, and Sullivan approve, and Burley.
I'm not on the committee, sorry.
You forgot Tallman. No, shoot, I'm sorry. I said Sullivan. Sullivan, Tallman.
And yourself.
All right, so good to go? It's passed. One missing, but we get Joe to vote on it when he gets back.
I'm back.
If you'd like to.
I concur with Councilor Tallman.
Okay. All right, so we're all set? 4-1. Passed 4-1.
Okay.
Joe's back. I'll hand off the meeting to Joe. Thank you, Councilor
Leahy. And I hope I didn't insult anyone there, but I had a little family thing to do with a key being dropped off. I got to feed my granddaughter Cat tomorrow.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Everything went well. Everything went smoothly.
All right. Good job.
Good job.
All right. So the discussion is still going into our last two items. Item number 8 is the $100,000 from stabilization to snow removal. We've done the similar transfer not too long ago. I think we understand why, but Mike, do you want to just update us where you are in terms of this line item?
Yeah, so we looked at all the bills that we have. We haven't passed all of them yet, but we currently would be $8,000 in the hole. That's including the $100,000 that has been added to the account.
Any questions for the superintendent? Councilor Sullivan?
No, it wasn't a question for the superintendent, no.
Okay, under discussion, Councilor Sullivan.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Given the fact that we've still got 48,000 now that we know of in that sale of real estate, and the fact that we have full council meetings on the 2nd and 16th, where if we did have another snowstorm or something dire came along, we'd have plenty of time to act on it. I would not be in favor of appropriating from stabilization at this point.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also take the same position, and similar to my earlier comments, whatever cash we have available in our operating budget, I believe should be used to pay for operations that include this snow issue at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
Sorry, my fat little fingers, it's hard to hit the mute button sometimes. To be honest with you, all my questions were asked and answered. Well, I guess I just have one editorial. Usually you go over this, Joe. For the people that are watching and viewing at home, snow removal is the one item that we're allowed to deficit spend, because quite frankly, it's an act of God. But that's it. Thank you.
Our only problem is we lost the deficit spending for this year because we didn't level fund the line item. Councilor Tallman.
True enough, right? Yeah, Mike, can you ask through the chair, Mike, what do you have in that budget right now in that line item?
8,000. So we've got If you look at what's available,
Available, yeah.
$99,000. But we have $107,000 in bills that we haven't processed yet for payment.
Okay, so in other words, you're in the hole 8 before this vote. So
Right.
if we have another storm, you have nothing, you're already in the hole.
Correct.
Was there, for the storm the other night, I'm sure 2 nights ago, the 2 or 3 inches we got was, there was plows out, right? And
There were
sanders?
plows out and salt and sanding. We didn't have contractors in.
Is there still a cost for that storm?
Yeah, we were using material.
Okay,
Our salt is around $67 a ton. Sand is a lot cheaper, but it doesn't melt the snow. We have taken more salt, so we have salt now.
Mhm.
We, as Councilor Leahy likes to mention, we test the salt every load that we get.
Yes, but I'm also, if I could just, instead of getting additional product for the high moisture, I would be looking at getting cash back because that's money that could be spent elsewhere.
Sometimes they give you the product, but I still got the floor, right?
Counselor Tallman,
Yeah,
I'm losing control.
no, it's all right. So is this,
Cat's fault.
yeah. Mike, is this funding then sort of dire? I mean, is it just something we could put off and try to get the funding from another source, as some of my colleagues stated? I know you like to have this, like a holder for it, but.
Right, and like the $48,000,
Right.
I would take
Possibly.
that.
And that's something that's going to have to come from, of course, the mayor
Correct.
to put forward. But okay, so that just gives me a little bit more comfort, because I just want to make sure that, we do be able to pay our bills and in the future storms, that there is something. But now noting that we have that 48,000, if we bond for the other vehicles, at least that's something that could get us through maybe a snowstorm or 2 snowstorms. So,
I mean, there's nothing on the 14-day forecast.
right, that's hopefully we'll be okay and it's almost March. Days are getting longer, the sun's getting stronger. So
I'm gonna go out on the limb, Counselor Tallman. There's no parade this year, so we're done with the snow.
yeah, I think we're done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions are answered.
You're welcome. Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, if I had a redo, I would, now that in light of what I think is going to happen, if I had a redo on 5, I would have voted yes. And so ultimately, when it comes to the floor next week, I'll vote yes in light of this discussion, because it seems as though we're gonna put the stabilization thing to rest this year anyhow on the 100,000. So that's good news with the 48,000 we have left. But I'm glad I asked the question, and I just want to give a compliment to our auditor, our appointee, who on her own initiative reached out to bond counsel, because I think that really brought the temperature way down. And I'm just going to make one more comment now that our fire chief is, boy, what trooper he is. But I knew that as when he was a kid playing picky behind Metcalf. But now that now that our fire chief knows that we have another $250,000
coming in, yeah,
we're pretty sure coming in. Now our fire chief is aware that there may be another revenue source by which his department can tap, and that's something that, now that we're all, this is finance chair's got us in a togetherness kind of mode. I'm telling you, this could work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
You're quite welcome.
Hey, Councilor McGivern.
Counselor,
How come when Councilor Tallman's butting in, you don't say anything to him, but I make one comment and you're all over me?
Because I had the floor.
Because I love you better.
Councilor Barley had the floor.
It's the cat's fault, Jimmy. I told you that.
I'm not going to win no matter what I do tonight. So
you're the vice chairman, Jim, even though I'm listed, but go ahead.
I knew you were going to pick up on that, but
yeah, that's okay, Joe.
We ran a Zoom meeting yet.
I got demoted, I guess. That's okay.
No, but did you hear me about the Zoom part?
No.
I didn't know if you ran a Zoom part yet.
You weren't here about a month ago, and Jim wasn't here either.
Counselor Tomlin is listed as the vice chair, and I recognize that. The second
thank you.
time I've done that. But if we could move on, Counselor Bacon, are you all set?
Yeah, she's all set. She can't fix the hand.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so
I'll make a motion to decline the item 8 from stabilization.
okay, so the motion is to deny item
Deny.
because it's stabilization. This is a little trickier. Counselor Bartley?
Well, can we make a friendly amendment, Mr. Chairman, to say, yes, we deny it, but can we say that we urge that a transfer be considered, or is that too ridiculous? From
No, the recommendations are attached or implied. I shouldn't say implied, but
okay, all right,
recommendations,
okay.
yes, are part of this because of the timing.
Good enough.
The idea is to get either something else in front of us, or we can change our vote on Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion to deny.
Second.
Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We got one more vehicle, then we got to get to a couple of grants. And I know we got at least one good person being very patient this evening. But item number 9 first.
Take 9 off the table, please.
Second.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This is a transfer request in the DPW budget from Forestry Services, $35,000. Waste Recycle Coordinator, $2,750. A total of $37,750 to Forestry Vehicle Lease. Under discussion, Mike, can you run us through this request?
Sure. So this would be a lease to own for a new bucket truck. DPW has a 30-year-old bucket truck that I think we also inherited from gas and electric at some point in time. And, I'm not even, I know our truck has major mechanical problems, major hydraulic problems. And we need to replace it. We're also looking at not being able to pass the state inspection or safety inspections. So our 5-year lease to own would be the $37,750. The thought is to take our contract forestry services budget line item and transfer that. And with the new truck, we would commit to actively working on tree maintenance and tree removal within the city, and not contracting out to Asplund or other vendors for that work. We didn't have enough money in that budget, so I took a little bit from a labor line item to make up the difference.
The total cost for the truck, Mike, would be?
$176,500 is the purchase.
Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, on this lease, you got money this year, so every year you're going to be taking the $37,750 from the contract forestry services. We won't have Asplund or anybody else.
Yeah, we wouldn't. That would be zero going forward. And
are we going to hire another person for that that department?
We looked for a tree climber years ago, and the salary that we would be able to offer wasn't what the market would take. So it'd be difficult to find somebody.
I'm just concerned that we're going to be able to get the number of work done with the trees and trimming as we did with the contracted services.
So we have the city forester, who's the park supervisor, and he pulls from the parks department when there are emergencies and we do need to get out there and do tree work. And he also pulls from the DPW highways department for additional labor as needed. So it would be a group effort. I support it completely. And I do think that we would make it happen with the new vehicle.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we can get the work done with the people that you have. I know you need a new vehicle, but just to make sure that that's one of our big lists is trees trimming and trees that cut down. It's a never-ending list, as most of my colleagues know. So I'm in approval of that if you feel that you have the workforce to do that. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, thank you. Once again, I would recommend putting this into the bond along with Chief Prishkowski. I think this would make more sense, bonding everything, than I just think that would be the best way. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mike, you have a preference there?
Well, yeah, if we put it in the bonds, we would pay less overall. We have a 3.5% interest rate through our vendor for the lease to own. But I don't think we would get up to that by bonding.
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, I want to thank Councilor Leahy for saying that, because that's certainly something I wanted to recommend. But Jim's on point on that one. I appreciate him saying it. That would be my preference, but I guess I'd want to get some direction from the finance chair as to how we could. I mean, I'm willing to vote for this tonight and recommend it, but I guess I'm going to leave my options open for next Tuesday, and with the hope and expectation that we'll have a little more direction from the mayor as relative to this overall bond package. And second of all, I want to give a compliment to our city forester. There's nobody better than John. It just, but John can't be divided into 2 or 3 or 8. We've got to get some. We got to get some person. I mean, how many times have I seen John on a tractor, cutting grass or whatever? I mean, I more than once. And I mean, it would be nice to have a city. Somebody could really do city forestry. Grinding the stumps, trimming the trees, pruning whatever they do, planting them on at least a consistent 15-hour basis. I don't know that we can say that John does that, because he's spread like butter across toast. I mean, he's just as thin as a whisper. So so I would hope, just through the chair to the DPW superintendent. And again, I'm not saying we have to expand our budget, but this would be something where we could, maybe find something in terms of grants or in terms of ROCA that might actually work. They could work under John's tutelage, which would, frankly, be invaluable. So I hope we can consider that. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
Very much in favor of this. The use of contract forestry service, it's something we've had to rely on an awful lot, because we haven't been able to hire a tree climber, and also because this other truck has been unreliable. We should be able to get a much greater return on the amount of work done by not using contract forestry services. So that's number one. My thought is maybe that we vote, because I do like the idea of bonding for this as well, with the rest of the vehicles, that just to get that out in front of the mayor as part of the rest of this package, but vote this out without a finding, so that we've got it in front of the full city council one way or the other on Tuesday.
And Councilor Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to echo some of the concerns around the manpower allocation because of what's been happening with the trash and recycling. I just wanted to confirm through the chair to our superintendent that the team that he's referring to is a different group of people than the folks that we're talking about for the trash and recycling pickup. Is that accurate?
Are you referring to the temporary workers?
I'm referring to the folks that you would be using on the new truck instead of the contractor.
Yes. So the people that would be working with John
Yes.
doing forestry work are not people that get assigned to trash or recycling.
Okay, so we wouldn't be setting up a draw from that perspective. I just wanted to clarify that if members of the public are listening, because we've been getting a lot of calls about that too. So thank you for clarifying that.
Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two things. I would have no problem doing the lease, even though the cost of the vehicle is more. You're getting a better deal than the fire chief. So your interest was only 12,000, and I think Chief, yours was about 16 or 17,000 for a lesser expense. So one thing, but the other aspect, I just looked in the budget, and I'm pretty certain we only had $25,000 that was appropriated for the contract forestry services. So unless a transfer came in to do something in the interim, and I don't recall it, we don't have 35,000 from that to transfer.
There was money that we had encumbered in the previous fiscal year for forestry services that weren't used that fiscal year.
Why doesn't that go back to free cash?
Yeah.
Because it was
encumbered.
Unencumbered money goes back to free cash, but if it's encumbered in a purchase order, it doesn't go back to free cash. That could be because we have, let's just say, an engineering contract for design that could span over a fiscal year. You wouldn't want that money to go into free cash at the end of the fiscal year because you've already allocated that money for those services.
Okay, so we do have additional money from fiscal 20 that we're taking out of this for fiscal 21.
For this year, yes. If we were to do it as proposed.
And I take it the invoice has gone away?
Correct, yeah.
And again, how quickly do you think we could have this vehicle?
I believe this is another like a 5 to 6 months, because you have to get the vehicle, and then you have the aerial lift added to it.
Okay, thank you. And let me just say one more. I just want to echo what Councilor Bartley just said. I mean, John Toohey, I've worked with him running my baseball league. I worked with when I was a Parks Commissioner, and he does outstanding work. And I know I've had a tree fall on in the park at Jackson and Maple Street, and I mean it was a huge tree, and he was able to get it out of there pretty quickly. So, and I know he ends up doing a lot of this without being able to get a whole lot of support. But I know when he climbs, he tries to have somebody there. So, but I just endorse. He's a great worker, and I certainly hope we keep him going.
Councilor Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see this passed tonight, taken, since the money is there in the department. I understand, the bonding part, but I'd hate to see another 180,000 almost, or 170,000 onto the other bonding amount, close to $1 million, which would add the cost a little bit over the 5 or 7 year term. And since it's going to take 5 months possibly to get this, and the money is there, I would like to see this this transfer approved tonight from those 2 line items.
Any further discussion, Councilor Bacon?
Joe, if I could.
Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I think I said before is bonding, I think, would be less expensive. I think it would be better off not only for us now, but as I've been saying all along, it's for future generations. This truck is going not only to be used for our generation, but hopefully the next and the one after that. So taking the money out now, I think is short-sighted. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm unmuted now. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Reagan.
Thank you. I agree with the folks who want to put this vehicle in with the bonding. And part of my thinking on that is the second step I would like to see happen is if we're not going to be using this contract and we're going to move ahead with the vehicle, I would like to see this $35,000 go to snow. Thank you.
Myself,
removal.
Mike, just a question. You're requesting the first payment if you were to go if you went to lease the loan, but that first payment would not be due this fiscal year, correct?
Correct.
So would you encumber it, or is your thoughts that you need this vote just to begin the lease the
I
home?
need the vote to start. Yeah.
Okay. So I think you are even looking at putting this in the bond package. Does that make more sense?
It does.
Okay. Any further?
Mr. Chairman, but
Yes?
this is before us as a transfer in this budget, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So
It's only for one annual payment of what would
Correct.
be 5 years of the same payment.
Correct. So what I'm suggesting is I would like to see that 35,000 go towards snow removal before we're going to stabilization or another fund.
Understood.
If it's needed. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay. Any further discussion? And I've heard more than one motion, or I think, or more than one consensus, but I think we're all leaning towards the same thing. Can I get a motion that we would agree upon?
A motion to deny.
Is there a second?
A second, but just with knowing that I'm for this, but I just want to fund it a different way.
Me
The
too.
motion made and seconded is to deny the transfer with the idea that this would become part of the bond package. If necessary, we would have it in front of us next Tuesday. We could change our minds.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
Yes
on
to
the
what you
motion?
said.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there
Aye.
anyone opposed? Unanimous. Michael, Chief, thank you so much, everybody. Great discussion. We have 2 more items, but great discussion. And I think it was an incredible collaboration on a global effort to and I hope get this done with the cooperation of the mayor next Tuesday.
A motion to take 10 off the table.
Motion and second to take item 10 off the table. This is a grant in front of us, a request to accept the Neighborhood Hub Program $100,000 no match 2-year grant. On the motion to take it off the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Welcome to our newest planning OPED economic development director. Can't say former state rep. Can I?
Yeah.
I can say former state rep, Aaron Vega. Aaron, thank you for your patience. And I knew you'd want to get some good experience listening to the discussion over the last 2 hours, hour and a half. And,
almost 3, but yeah.
3, yeah.
Former city councilor too, so you know.
Former city councilor.
That's right.
Look, you answered it with the request that there is no match.
Yep.
But can you walk us through the grant, what it's for?
Absolutely.
As you know, grants, we authorize not only accepting it, but setting up the accounts and methods that are used to pay for it. You've been with us. I know you understand the concerns we have with the way outside auditors are looking at our grant use and deficit issues. But first of all, what's the grant for, and how, if allowed, how would you use it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, I should say. Yes, and also on a side note, I'm also glad to hear that the office that I work with is helping fund some new revenue for you with the sale of property. So the purchase of the sale of JRX Authority and whatnot. So glad to see that being put to good use. The Neighborhood Hub Grant, we have been selected along with 7 other gateway cities. It was created to support the Commonwealth gateway cities as we are one to address the challenges in our market around housing. As you know, you've been at the forefront of trying to address some innovative housing projects in South Holyoke and the Flats. This is a technical assistance grant of $100,000 over 2 years, funded primarily through mass housing. also through the Mass Inc. and the Attorney General's office. It provides technical assistance, as I said, primarily to get an inventory of where we are with our property in South Holyoke and the Flats. So it could be abandoned properties, maybe properties that have restrictions on the amount of income individuals can make. So a good inventory. It will give us a preliminary cost estimate to rehab many of the buildings. It will not be going inside the building. So, you know, it'll be an exterior review. So if the copper's been torn out of a building, or if it, you know, has knob and tube wire, we're not going to know that kind of information. It's an outside evaluation. As I said, over the last few years, we've been focused on housing in the downtown, in the center city, mostly in South Holyoke and the Flats. I believe that the counselors from those neighborhoods have been notified about this grant. Our primary projection to use this grant, I did send this information over this afternoon. I apologize for getting it over late. I did send this over to our city solicitor, city auditor, and purchase director, so that they were aware of this grant. And I will be sure to send you the information, and Jeffrey in the same manner. So as you know, 90% of our units in these neighborhoods are rental, with little opportunity for upward mobility. So again, this grant will allow us to get a more detailed inventory on the short-term actions that we can take as a city to address the housing issues and needs for the Holyoke and for even our surrounding communities as we draw more people into the jobs that we're creating. And the goal is to increase housing opportunities in stock for our residents, and reduce blight, which is of course important to all of us, and improve quality of life for the city. Our partners in this are the Holyoke Housing Authority and One Holyoke CDC. They are our partners in this, primarily One Holyoke CDC, since they do own a number of properties in these neighborhoods, and look to leverage what they do for more housing. So this will be information shared with these organizations as well. The four main points, if you will, of the grant are to get an inventory and sort of know where these buildings are, you know, on a scale of, are they at risk of being lost? Are they stable? Identify the vacant properties and that we could leverage to scale bigger opportunities, which is what we're doing with the Holyoke Housing Authority right now for the South Holyoke Homes Project. You know, getting multiple vacant lots, aggregating them into a bigger lot for bigger development. So again, that could give us more information on that. Estimate, again, I say estimate capital improvement needs in the neighborhood, because again, this will be an outside review, not an inside review. And then provide information on how we can utilize state grants and other programs to do these housing projects. So it's a technical assistance grant over $100,000 over 2 years, reimbursed. So either from us and or they're figuring out if they can reimburse One Holyoke directly. We will probably be hiring consultants. They have a number of pre-approved consultants that we can utilize. So that'll bring the cost down. Well, it won't be any cost to us, but it'll make the money go further. Happy to ask any other questions. So this is my first grant on my watch, and thankfully there's no match. And also to before Councilor Bartley asked the question, hopefully you got the communication from me that my entire staff sat with our auditor and went over the procedure, so we are well aware of the procedure. And I also believe that you received a communication from my predecessor, Marcos Marrero, to the few outstanding issues that dealt with grants out of the OPED office. And if you have not received that, I will make sure to resend it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and well done. Is there any discussion? Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. And obviously we got a lot of things going on in South Holyoke, but a couple of things, and this ties into the Flats, and I'm assuming we also would be tying into Churchill and the City Hall area in terms of some of this, but I know it's primarily South Holyoke and the Flats. And I know talk about economic vitality, and one of the things I've been trying to encourage as I've been advocating for homes in South Holyoke and home ownership, to try to get an economic diversity as well as an ethnic diversity. One of the weaknesses in part of it is that we've lost a lot of the commercial aspects of Main Street. And yet we do have buildings there that could be providing additional housing, but also provide some commerce, retail, restaurants, other kind of businesses. So there's quite a few. If I go from Sargent Street down to Appleton Street, there's a lot of storefronts that have apartment buildings on top but are not in full use or not in use at all. So I would really emphasize us taking a look at those. How do we get a viable apartment complex on the second and third stories while we get some kind of commerce that would be both beneficial to the neighborhood to be able to go to have a restaurant or whatever, go have a coffee, whatever the case might be. So that kind of revitalizes the aspect of the neighborhood, which is the way the neighborhood used to be, as you were well aware, or your father was well aware of. I know that. So those would be things I would certainly emphasize. And the other aspect, again, I think, and I know first part of the South Holyoke project is rental, but then the next part is home ownership. And I would encourage the third and fourth parts to be more home ownership, maybe with some rental as well. But we need to provide the economic means to be able to support the businesses that we're trying to establish on Main Street. So they got to kind of all tie together, and also Cabot Street for that matter, or all need to be tied in together. So I read the literature you sent out today, and I appreciated that. And I really think the economic vitality is an important part of developing the following plan. So if we can look at Main Street, and I'm guaranteeing there are opportunities to do something, and there's other opportunities we got to say it's gone too far, and then we got to act.
Absolutely, I will push the boundaries as much as I can on the review as far as we can, and I would just point out that we've got some major developments. I hope that you in this weekend maybe get over to Kai and Eli's over on High Street. We are exactly seeing that our storefronts are being reoccupied on High Street. And the gentleman and the company that owns that building was in my office today, talking with Ben Murphy and myself about the housing project they have. They bought another building on High Street, so we are definitely moving that direction. I don't think that they'll be able to give us an inventory of the commercial spaces with this grant, but perhaps we can work in conjunction to get that inventory as well.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilor Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Aaron, well, thank you for being here. One, I don't know, I didn't see in my email box, I'm sure it was there, but I just checked, and I don't have an unread email from you. But so perhaps if you would be so kind as to resend it to me. So yep. I'm not sure why I would have not seen it. So that's one. Yep. Number two is while you were in Boston, we passed an ordinance that mandates that we get updates on grants, specifically, who we hire, our inputs, our outputs. If this is a 2-year deal, I would hope we would get at least a 1-year update. So that's now in ordinance form. And you can certainly speak with Attorney Barnes on that, and she can get you a reference. Or I'm sure Tanya could easily get you the reference on that too, because so we want to see who, what even, so the budget's 100,000. The revenue source is what it is. This is who we hired. This is what we completed. I don't think it has to be a thesis, but it should be a page or two, and this should be regular operating order. Yes. To city council. So Jim and I co-filed this a couple of years ago. So now you're a new department head. So now you know. So no claiming ignorance. Not that you would, but I'm just saying it out loud. So now we're on camera. We know what we said. The last piece is that, and I'm almost sure this won't happen, but that's the skeptic in me. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be nice if we're going to be having this kind of, I can't tell you how many similar type grants I've seen in my career where it's this is one of those things where we're taking an inventory for $100,000. Somebody's gonna question me about this. But if we're gonna do this, which I'm sure we are, it sure would be nice, Mr. Chairman, that the city of Holyoke would certainly, in its specs, give preference to a minority contractor, a minority vendor who's going to be in a Spanish-speaking neighborhood that can speak Spanish, have some sort of cultural sensitivity to this, and have experience in, as the Ward 2 councilor said, in renewing old mixed-use buildings instead of getting some basic technical assistance from some standard consultant that always gets $100,000 from Northampton or Pretty Little Needham or Pretty Little whatever town they've got down in Boston, all pretty little towns with pretty little people that get the same damn grants all the time. There's got to be, Mr. Chairman, a better way. There's got to be some vendor out there on the state list that can speak Spanish. Not that, you know, there's somebody knows what, because that's the population. That's the population there. I'm not saying it's all the population there, but that's the population that I feel is underserved, and we can get a vendor that actually knows how to do this. So it's my hope that the procurement officer with Mr. Moriarty and Mr. Vega and Ms. Belanger, none of whom I'm unaware of any of them that speak Spanish, but maybe, you know, I'll stand corrected. But somebody's got to have some kind of sensitivity to this, and so that's my 2 cents. But thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Aaron, just real quick, I know you met with Tanya and your whole staff met with Tanya. We appreciate that.
Yep.
These reimbursement grants, the trick or the hot spot is the crossover of fiscal years.
Yep.
And that's where we're getting the outside auditor is looking at, and you know you might get something that's reimbursed 2 weeks after July 1.
Yep.
And it just needs to be reconciled in a different way on June 30th.
Yep.
If I'm saying that right, Tanya, I hope I got the editorial comment in there.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve and recommend to the full city council next week to do so. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to take number 11 off the table.
Motion made second to take item 11 off the table.
Thank
Item
you.
11 comes in
Good evening.
as a request
Thank
of the
you.
Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, that the City Council accept the provisions of the Mass DEP Small Scale Initiatives for $1,500, no match. It expires on June 30th, 2021. We are authorizing an establishment of a fund or method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of said grants. Under discussion, is there any discussion?
Yeah, we got a department head here on this, or there? Okay, thank you. Is Mike our department head on this, Joe?
I am.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. He's just tuning in.
This is a grant, small scale initiatives for recycling. It's $1,500 that we can use for various recycling initiatives. And what I would like to do with this $1,500 is to look into starting a textile recycling program here at our barn, where people can drop off clothes. You've seen them around the city. I think there's even an ordinance on the books about those types of drop-off facilities and how they need to be maintained. But what this would do is give the city more points that the DEP uses to score communities on how well they are at recycling. And the more points that you have, the bigger grants that you have access to. So there's another small scale initiative for $2,500, and I think that already came through the finance committee a little while ago. I'd like to use that to set up a swap shop here at DPW, where people could bring their used appliances or wooden furniture, certain items to drop off, and other people would be able to come and take those items if they could use it. That would also get us more points for the DEP, and it would get us into that next bucket where we could start looking for grants for more recycling bins. We can't use it to buy vehicles, but we could use it for larger grants.
Wow. I like the way you think.
There's no match associated with this.
Councilor Tomlin?
Oh, yeah, thanks. I just wanted to say on the previous grant that I wanted to say, I was out for a second. I had to take my dog out for a walk, and I want to pass it. I want to say I approve it. I'm a yes vote on the last one.
Item number 10. You're okay. You marked a yes.
Okay.
Mike, is any of this be some savings in the tipping fee for solid waste because it would stay out of the waste stream?
Correct. Yeah, I can't quantify how much that would be,
Understood.
but yes.
Councilor Barley.
Yeah, I just want to, well, before I point out something, you know, we got McGivern with the cats and Tomlin with the dogs. Does Leahy got the goldfish or something? Before I,
No, I have
okay.
sea monkeys.
So
Sea monkeys, yeah.
I'll tell you. That was Councilor Greeny, who on his first go around here, who was tackling the issue with all the overflowing drop boxes for the textile. So we did that on his first swing through City Council, or whenever that was, a couple of years ago. So I just want to point that out. And not to go off topic, but I'm going to brief those to deep it. So Mike, I'm going to file. I'm glad we're doing this, expanding the reach a little bit. But I mean, a lot of us want to know, you know, the basic stuff about when we're going to do striping and patching, because I know the pothole season is fast approaching and the bulk waste drop off. So I'm going to file an order, Mike, for next week. So to ask you to send a communication to City Council to at least update us as quickly as you can as to hours of operation on and when those things are going to go forward. But in terms of this, I'm all in favor. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Chair will entertain a motion that
Make a motion to accept the grant.
Second.
Pass the motion.
If there's no
Second
discussion,
motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Yes, a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, but real quick, we have a meeting Monday. Just a reminder, I hope you all saw the agenda. The first part will be our outside auditor will be with us, Tanya Campbell, our auditor, Tanya Dojic, will be with us. And there also will be, after that, a discussion on free cash certification. The audit we're doing, we received electronically, is the fiscal 2019, which is the one that just got finalized. The free cash we're doing will be more about fiscal 2020, which is, you know, which we'll go into the talk about the issues of deficit grants and deficit, not just grants, but deficit funding.
Is the mayor invited?
What's that?
I assume we invited the mayor, but I think we should make it explicit.
If
Don't you?
not, I will reach out myself, and Jeff, please make sure the mayor's, I'm pretty sure he's aware of it, but we'll make sure. If no further discussion, I heard a motion to adjourn. I want to just say this was a kumbaya moment.
Amen. Yeah.
Both members, other city councilors, our department heads were tremendous. Everybody, great job tonight. On the motion to adjourn.
Good job, Chair.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And adjourn. Good night.
Good night.
Happy birthday.